American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 726, The Old Man Thanos Who Retired from the Army. Peter, who was struck by Thor's lightning, supported Loki and shook his head slightly. Do you two seem to have some hatred, Thor? No, I'm sorry, I just couldn't control myself. Thor looked at Loki, who had fallen into coma, and apologized with a little regret. He didn't know why he was so impulsive. I'm sorry, I made a mistake, sir, it's all my fault. Thor apologized to Peter awkwardly. He wanted to come up and confirm Loki's injuries, but soon stopped. After all, it was all caused by himself. Thor, who felt guilty and worried about Loki's injury, began to become a little overwhelmed. Seeing Thor's expression like a child who had made a mistake, Peter didn't blame him. Come on, come with me to Madame Pomfrey's infirmary. You are also seriously injured. Peter asked Thor to go to the infirmary with him for treatment. Oh, okay. Seeing that Peter didn't seem to be angry with him, Thor immediately hurried to catch up with Peter. At Madame Pomfrey's first aid tent, Peter watched as the other party used a smoking, smelly purple liquid to clean Loki's wound, then touched the wound with a wand, and then the wound healed miraculously. Loki is fine, he just fell asleep due to exhaustion of magic power. He is lucky that the wound is shallow, but it needs to be cleaned first. Madame Pomfrey kept talking angrily. So many students were injured. Last year it was Dementors. This year it's the Triwizard Tournament. What are they going to bring into this school next? Listening to Madame Pomfrey's complaints, Peter touched his nose awkwardly and remained silent. It seemed that he had changed the Triwizard Tournament to a mess. When Madame Pomfrey went to another room to treat Thor's wound, little Horace peeked in stealthily. Horace, come in. Peter asked the sneaky Horace to come in. Emperor Dad, is Loki okay? Little Horace glanced at Loki on the bed and asked with some concern. It's okay, Loki just fell asleep due to exhaustion of magic power. He will be fine after a good sleep, Peter comforted little Horace. That's good, little Horace breathed a sigh of relief. Then he asked Peter hesitantly, Emperor Dad, Loki and Thor have a special relationship, right? Peter nodded. Yes, Thor is the thunder god of the parallel world, and his brother is also Loki, but Loki is dead. So now seeing Loki in our world, I have complicated feelings. I know, Emperor Dad, little Horace said to him. Mark once told me the story of Thor. I know about him. You know Thor? Peter looked at him in surprise. Yes, Emperor Dad. What kind of person do you think he is, Horace? I think he is very straightforward, although his emotional intelligence is a bit low, and he seems to never listen to others. He should be the kind of person who, after you have been talking to him for half an hour about how much you like bananas, nods very sincerely, and then pulls a card of pears a little later, and then pats your shoulder enthusiastically, laughs with you. This is very delicious. Let's eat it together, little Horace expressed his opinion. Then, he ate half a card of pears first as a sign of respect, as if you had been talking for half an hour in vain. He will only treat others well in a way that he can understand. If you get along with him, you will think he is very good, little Horace said in a depressed mood. I think, Emperor Dad, he loves his brother very much, but the love of Thor may not be the kind that his brother wants. Peter was a little surprised when he heard the answer of little Horace. He didn't expect Horace to know so much at such a young age. Reaching out his hand, he stroked little Horace's hair. Yes, their problem is that they don't understand each other. Thor loves too hard, while Loki loves too twistedly. Sometimes when you love someone too much, you want to indulge him on the one hand, and control him on the other hand. Thor may have been the eldest brother for too long, and he has always been like, I'm the elder brother, you can't do it, you have to listen to me to Loki. As for Loki, he doesn't want this kind of condescending care. After a pause, Peter looked outside and said with mixed feelings, as for Loki, he actually doesn't understand his brother's responsibilities and duties as a crown prince. After all, he is a selfish person. Even Thor didn't understand it until he died once. He wishes Thor could live happily in the universe like him. No matter what Thor wants, as long as it's not what he wants, it doesn't matter. So, sometimes, we need to consider things from the other person's perspective, especially for the person you love. As Peter spoke, he thought of Horace's tragedy. In a way, Horace also had twisted love. Throughout the Padrick farm, although Bomb looks a bit sickly. But Bomb's problem is more caused by the conflict between the two cities, and the real sickly is Horus. As the first war master of all time, Horus' biggest problem is that he is burdened by emotions. Horus has always been obsessed with a relationship between himself and the Emperor. It can even be said that it is okay to be a little sick, and Horus has never looked at the problem from the perspective of the Lord of Mankind or the leader of mankind. As the first son to return, Horus was the one the Emperor devoted the most effort to. It took 30 years to find him and the second Primarch. In these 30 years, the Emperor relied on Horus very much and valued Horus very much. It can be said that he favored Horus alone in these 30 years. In the words of Horus, who was suffering from Alzheimer's disease during the siege of Terra, "How old am I? I'm only a few hundred years old. 30 years is a long time for me, but for the Emperor who is tens of thousands of years old, it may be just a moment." 30 years of exclusive favor made Horus more outstanding and powerful in all aspects, but Horus's dependence on the Emperor was unprecedented. It was so deep that even during the siege of Terra, Horus would show the ring his father gave him to people around him or demons, recalling his father's past, talking about how he was in the past, and how good his father was to him. So in order to prevent Horus from becoming a more serious Yandir than Bakugo and avoid sitting on the golden toilet, Peter decided to convey some positive emotions to him. He tried to make Horus understand that loving someone is not about wanting to control him, but about considering the problem from the other person's perspective. "I understand, Dad." Listening to Peter's story, Horus looked thoughtful. "Okay, let Loki rest here, let's leave first." Peter patted Horus' shoulder and asked him to leave with him. After Peter left, Loki opened his eyes. He heard everything Peter said just now. With his eyes open, staring at the ceiling of the emergency tent, Loki fell into deep thought. Was her love for her father too paranoid? When Peter and Horus arrived at the stands, Wanda had already started her game. As a foreign aide of Boxburton's School of Magic, Madame Maxime had been nervously focusing her eyes on Wanda. She was not satisfied with Fleur's previous performance, and now she could only pin her hopes on the Scarlet Witch who volunteered herself. In the stands, Hermione, Mark and Harry sat together, looking at Wanda in surprise. Hermione asked in confusion, "She is a foreign aide of Boxburton's School of Magic? Who is she?" Mark pondered for a moment and whispered, "In fact, she is her father's goddaughter. Her father gave her a farm that is exactly the same as ours." Hermione was shocked after hearing this. "Another Mr. Padraic's daughter." Looking at Wanda who exuded a powerful aura, Harry asked Mark, "How good is her magic level? Have you all forgotten?" Mark said to several people, "When Professor Lupin demonstrated the Bogartress last time, wasn't Raven most afraid of Wanda?" After hearing what Mark said, Hermione immediately remembered, "I remember, it's her. Harry met Wanda last Christmas, and he asked Mark puzzledly, why is Raven afraid of her? I guess it's probably because Wanda is also a powerful magician, and Dad gave her the management rights of another farm." Hermione interrupted and asked, "What kind of magic does she know?" "Chaos magic." Mark thought about what Peter had said to him before, glanced at Raven quietly, and whispered, "Dad said that Wanda's most powerful magic is chaos magic. This ability is inherited from her gypsy wizard family. Chaos magic is the ancestor of all magic, the oldest independent form of magic, the earliest primordial light in cosmic cognition and accidental events, and the strange and impossible fire of life burning is chaos magic. Chaos magic is neither purely constructive nor destructive. It is not limited by good or evil. It is all possibilities between good and evil, outside of good and evil, and between the two. It is also the dice rolled by the caster." Hermione was almost numb after hearing Mark's explanation. How come each of Mr. Peter's daughters or goddaughters, taken out individually, is this kind of existence that seems to be able to destroy the world? Harry, who was next to him, listened to Mark's words and looked at Wanda projected on the screen in shock. At this time, Wanda was walking in an endless wilderness. After entering the portal, she was teleported here. After knowing that her enemy was Thanos, or Thanos created by Peter's projection, Wanda became cautious. She knew how Thanos almost wiped them out. While thinking, Wanda suddenly found a small wooden house in front of her. And her opponent, Thanos, was using a hoe to plow the land next to the cabin. Chapter 727, Darkened Wanda and Angry Riven. The morning mist glowed thinly under the rising sun. When Wanda's feet sank into the soft soil, the smell of rotten straw penetrated her nostrils. She frowned as she watched the ashes falling from her palms. Not far away, Thanos' hunched purple back was setting up a support for tomato seedlings, and half of a charred infinity gauntlet lay next to the rusty farm tools. Thanos stopped watering the tomato seedlings, and the incomplete infinity gauntlet reflected an ominous light. He seemed to sense something and turned around. "It's you, Thanos." The crimson energy at Wanda's fingertips began to boil, and the ears of wheat moved without wind. "Why are you here?" She didn't expect to see Thanos here. Was this a test set for herself by Mr. Peter using the power of the god of sleep to create an illusion? Or did she really see Thanos, the Thanos from another parallel world? When Thanos turned around, the metal armor on his body made a harsh friction sound. His eyes swept over Wanda's body. "It seems you've taken the wrong path, little girl." Thanos bent down and pulled out the sword stuck in the soil, the blade stained with wet black mud. "The war here is over." "What war?" Wanda looked at him in shock, not knowing what Thanos meant. Without waiting for Thanos to answer, she had a bad feeling in her heart and suddenly shot out the crimson chain. With a bang, the crimson chain wrapped around Thanos' neck. Chaos magic unconsciously scanned his memory. Wanda's vision began to collapse. Countless spots of light expanded into nebulae in the darkness, and she saw herself standing under the blood-red sky of Titan. Ashes fell like heavy snow. The scene of Thanos crying while holding Gamora's body appeared on the screen, and superheroes such as Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Winter Soldier disappeared one after another. Peter Parker's fingertips were melting, and he fell to the cold metal surface of Titan, and the nanoparticles of the battlesuit tried to repair his gradually disintegrating body. "Mr. Stark," the boy cried, and his right hand tried in vain to grab Tony's charred visor, but the ashes drifted along his fingers, and Tony Stark could only watch the boy disappear. T'Challa knelt on one knee on the purple grassland of Wakanda, and the last trace of light on his vibranium suit faded, revealing his frozen face of astonishment. Wanda also saw herself. She saw herself kneeling beside the remains of Vision, and her fingertips just touched the crack on Vision's forehead, and she burst into tears. Bang! The chain was broken by Thanos' sword, and the magic fragments burst out. "Your universe is lucky." Thanos held the hilt of the knife and stared at her. "Peter Patrick stopped me, but here, I won." "What did you win?" Wanda asked him angrily. "Did you finish that snap? You killed half of the human race." "Yes, because the universe needs balance." Thanos inserted the sword into the scorched earth. "Have you witnessed a world with exhausted resources? This universe needs to be corrected. We keep asking for it from this world, but we never give anything in return." "Balance." Wanda's voice was full of anger. "How many people have you murdered?" Now Wanda really believed that this scene had happened. In her own universe, Peter stopped all this, but in a parallel universe, or in some future or past, Thanos really snapped his fingers. No matter what, she couldn't accept such an ending. More than half of the human beings on Earth disappeared. And she couldn't do anything. The most important thing is that all the superheroes she knew disappeared, so Peter must have failed, or even disappeared. When she thought of this, her eyes instantly turned blood red. Wanda's emotions fluctuated violently from what she saw and thought of. She stretched out her hand, and as Wanda released scarlet magic, the ground was lifted up like a carpet. With a boom, Thanos swung his sword to split the oncoming ground. Wanda was suspended in the air, and the rune chain stretched out from the void, making a sound of breaking through the air and attacking Thanos. Dang! Thanos smashed the chains with the handle of his sword, and the blood oozing from the wound splashed out. Facing Wanda's attack, Thanos suddenly inserted his sword into the ground. The moment the sword pierced the ground, the gravitational field was distorted. The deafening sound echoed in the space, and Thanos took the opportunity to rush to a dangerous distance and attacked Wanda. His fighting skills were still accurate and fierce, but Wanda's magic barrier instantly resisted Thanos' attack. With a red magic energy released from his right hand, Wanda was furious and knocked Thanos away. "You don't understand at all." Thanos staggered to his feet and continued to attack Wanda. At this time, Wanda's mind was also unstable because of the influence of reality. The sonic boom when Thanos rushed forward made a booming sound. The crimson barrier attacked by Thanos rippled, and Wanda's breathing began to become heavy. Boom! The next second, the barrier was shattered, and Wanda was knocked out before she could react. In the stands, everyone who saw this scene exclaimed. No one expected that Wanda, who had an extraordinary aura, would fall down as soon as she came up. Boom and V saw that Wanda was injured, and immediately stood up, looking at the scene in front of them in surprise. Wanda stood up from the ground, and the crimson energy boiled in her palm like liquid flame. Facing the rushing Thanos, The chaos sphere condensed in Wanda's palm expanded into a scarlet vortex with a diameter of 10 meters, and hit Thanos. Facing Wanda's attack, the Titan's muscular arm suddenly exerted force, and his armored right hand hit the core of the magic vortex. The collision of the two energies caused a violent explosion, and the shock wave cut the surrounding ground into a circular pit, and the burning crops fell into the sky like a rainstorm. With a bang, Wanda was pushed back by the magic power and hit the ground heavily. Thanos was also knocked to the ground and plowed along the ground. Wanda fell to the ground, surrounded by anger, and felt that her blood was boiling. She felt her long hair began to burn. It was not fire, but some more ancient energy form chaos magic was devouring her host. And Thanos also rushed over at this time. The next second, Thanos' blade pierced her left abdomen, but it seemed to stab into a black hole, and the whole right arm was instantly wrinkled and twisted into a knot. Did you see it? Wanda reached out and grabbed Thanos' neck, slowly rising into the air. The ground under her feet cracked inch by inch. The pain you gave me. The sky behind Wanda cracked into a huge scarlet eye. A new god is being born. The audience at the scene saw the sudden change and suddenly fell into a stagnation. Raven in the stands was also stunned when she saw this scene. She has always regarded Wanda as one of her biggest enemies in the competition for the farm, and believes that she is a threat to her in terms of strength, just like Leela. Especially for Wanda, she always has a vague sense of uneasiness and fear, always feeling that there is a hidden existence in her body that even she feels threatened. Now seeing this scene, Raven finally understood why Bogart transformed into Wanda, and why the object of her fear was not Clark, Azu and Leela, but Wanda. It turns out that Wanda in this form is the most terrifying. Crack, Thanos, who was pinched by Wanda's neck, had his neck twisted in an instant. The ominous aura in the sky, the scarlet and disturbing things that almost overflowed, quickly spread outward. Harry and Hermione, who saw this scene, immediately stood up and looked at each other in horror. Is the Scarlet Witch in front of them the enemy of this level? This large purple potato spirit had her neck twisted in an instant. And the whole world seemed to be destroyed under her momentum. Dumbledore, who was sitting in the referee seat, also stood up. Without caring about anything else, he walked quickly towards Peter. Although he didn't know Wanda's power, he could feel that if he let her continue, it was probably not a question of whether the Triwizard Tournament could continue, but whether the entire Hogwarts school could be saved. As the instigator of everything, Peter was also a little shocked when he saw this scene. He just used the power of the ruby to shape the Thanos who snapped his fingers in the original world line, and weakened Thanos' strength. Unexpectedly, Wanda turned evil directly. The world he created with the magic of the ruby also began to become unstable, and there was a risk of collapse at any time. Peter, who realized that something was wrong, immediately entered the portal. Raven saw this scene and followed Peter into the portal. Wanda, Peter's voice suddenly rang in Wanda's ears. Wanda, who was originally in a state of rampage, stopped directly. Turning around, she let go of the hand holding Thanos' neck. Thanos, who was let go by her, turned into sand and disappeared in the air. Wanda, with red eyes and a slightly confused expression, tilted her head and looked at Peter. Don't let your emotions consume your reason, Wanda. It's me. Look at me. I'm standing here. Everything is illusory. What you are afraid of, what you see, is not real, Peter said as he slowly walked towards Wanda. Be careful, Dad. She is no longer Wanda. Raven suddenly appeared behind Peter, watching Wanda in the collapsing world, and shouted at Peter. Leave it to me to deal with her. I just want. Raven hadn't finished her words when she saw Wanda wave her hand casually. The next moment Raven suddenly found that she had no mouth. Wanda's chaos magic directly made her mouth disappear, so that she could only make a sound. Then Wanda walked in front of Peter, stretched out her hand, tilted her head, and held Peter's face. Is it really you? Yes, it's me. It's okay, Wanda, I'm here. As he spoke, Peter reached out to touch Wanda's face. As Peter moved, the collapse of the world began to stop, and the huge scarlet eye in the sky slowly disappeared. Seeing this scene, Raven, who was originally angry and wanted to fight Wanda who made her mouth disappear, also stopped. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 728, The Hidden Star-Lord. I'm Peter Patrick, standing right here. It's not fake, but very real." Peter gently stretched out his hand and tentatively pulled Wanda into his arms little by little. He saw Raven's mouth disappear. However, considering that Raven couldn't speak and might feel uncomfortable, the most important thing now was to comfort Wanda. Wanda, who seemed a little confused, didn't resist too much. Closing her eyes, she didn't struggle too much in Peter's arms, but stretched out her hands to hug Peter. The power that endangered the entire world gradually began to stabilize. The scarlet giant eye that suddenly appeared in the sky exuded a strange and powerful coercive presence. Under Wanda's stable emotions, it finally slowly disappeared. Feeling Wanda in his arms, his emotions gradually calmed down, and Peter breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Wanda woke up. Otherwise, he really couldn't be sure that he could control the situation. In the original world line, after the Thanos incident, Wanda and Vision lived in seclusion in the small town of Westview. In the case of mental disorder, Wanda used chaos magic to control all the people in Westview, turning Westview into a world with visions and children, and all the residents cooperated with her to play a period drama. Later, the Black Witch Agatha brought the Dark Book to seize Wanda's ability, but was killed by Wanda. After the magic was lifted, Wanda found that her 2 sons were gone. After that, Wanda chose to live alone in a place where no one would disturb her. At the same time, she also opened the Dark Book brought by Agatha, and learned a lot of magic knowledge and multiverses while reading it. When she tried to use the methods in the book to spy on the multiverse, she connected to a universe with her children. So far, she would connect to the side of Wanda in the multiverse every day when she fell asleep. Although it seems to be let go, in fact, the stubborn side of Wanda's character is shown by her. She has never given up on her children, and she will do anything after blackening. She can distort reality, manipulate matter and energy at will, and even affect the structure of the multiverse. Wanda broke through the magic Holy Land Kamartaj alone, ignoring all defensive spells, and turned the entire building into ruins. And Wanda slaughtered the Illuminati of 838 universes. Facing Black Bolt, Wanda sealed his mouth with magic, making it impossible for him to send out sonic attacks, and shot him in the head directly. To deal with Mr. Fantastic, she twisted his body into a twist with chaos magic and strangled him. After that, Wanda used the fragments of the shield to cut Captain Britain in half, invaded Professor X's mental realm, and crushed his brain. The whole process took only a few minutes. This is still the initial stage of blackening. Peter even knows that Wanda's most outstanding achievement is that she wiped out the abilities of 98% of mutants in the world with the words "No more mutants," and directly rewrote reality. And Wanda's magic fluctuations caused multiple universes to overlap, causing the collapse of the reality structure, such as the emergence of blood vessel-like patterns on the surface of New York City buildings, and magical mutations of creatures. "Sir, is it really you?" Peter was thinking about Wanda's achievements, and Wanda suddenly raised her head and asked him in a low voice. "Yes, it's me. I'm standing here now. It's not fake, nor is it a dream. The Thanos you saw just now was just a reality that never happened and couldn't exist." Peter comforted her. "The fact is, we defeated Thanos, and those tragic realities didn't happen. I'm scared. I was full of fear just now because I thought you failed or died. If that were the case, I'm afraid I would question or even destroy the meaning of my existence now," Wanda said in Peter's arms with a complicated tone. Raven, who was standing next to her, reached out and touched her mouth after seeing the scarlet giant eye in the sky disappear. She found that her mouth had grown back. She was a little embarrassed and angry. If she hadn't seen Peter here, she would definitely release magic towards Wanda. This woman actually made her mouth disappear. From childhood to adulthood, she had never suffered such a great grievance. Raven, clenching her fists and gritting her teeth, finally endured it. "I'll remember this grudge and I'll definitely settle accounts with Wanda in the future." In the first attempt, Peter waited until Madame Pomfrey gave Wanda a simple treatment and left, then walked to the bed. "I'm so sorry, sir," Wanda apologized to Peter with some guilt. "No, it's my fault. Maybe I should have told you in advance." Peter shook his head and sat down in front of Wanda's bed. Wanda thought for a moment and asked him, "Sir, did what I saw really happen? I mean, Thanos successfully snapped his fingers." "Well, this is a complicated matter. If I hadn't appeared, maybe that ending would have happened, but I believe that you will win in the end, because the Avengers still exist. I believe that Captain America and Tony Stark will eventually defeat Thanos and save the fate of the Earthlings." "That's terrible," Wanda sighed slightly. Sir, I can't imagine how we can fight Thanos without you. She hesitated and looked into Peter's eyes. Actually, I want to say, sir, it's great to know you. Peter was slightly stunned and said to Wanda, me too. After letting Raven stay in the emergency tent to take care of Wanda, Peter returned to the stands. The last game of the game has begun, and Star-Lord has already exchanged fire with his opponent. Boom. 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 Star-Lord's boots left 2 scorch marks on the asphalt road. He flew backwards and used the elemental gun to release bullets. The frost bullets drew a trajectory in the air and attacked the enemy. Although he was not very good at magic, in order to participate in the competition, Star-Lord asked Wanda for help and used the concealment magic to present the elemental gun in the form of a wand. Now everyone in the stand saw Star-Lord using the wand to release frost continuously. The pupils of the atomic girl Eve glowed blue. With a light stroke of her right index finger, the freezing energy that attacks suddenly decomposed into free atoms. Although it's a bit troublesome, I won't lose, because I am the heir of Padrick's farm, the man who defeated Lucifer, in the deserted city, Star-Lord said as he jumped up while stepping on the billboard, and the elemental gun switched to plasma mode. Before the blue arc was formed, the manhole cover under Eve's feet suddenly reorganized and turned into a hexagonal shield to block the attack. Dang! Before the sparks of metal collision dissipated, the girl's left hand had condensed into a spear. The sharp whistle of the spear piercing the air made the hair on the back of Star-Lord's neck stand up. And he urgently used the energy of the gods to create a shield. The gravel within a radius of several meters was instantly suspended, and the spear flew past his ear. Boom! The spear created by Eve had explosives on its surface, and it exploded instantly when it touched the ground. Eve was originally fighting against the Cyclops in the world of the invincible young hero, but she didn't expect to be pulled into the wonderful magical world. Although she was a little unhappy at first, after staying in Hogwarts for 2 days, Eve was completely fascinated by the magical life here. She didn't even want to go back. Anyway, her world has the invincible young hero and the Global Defense Agency. While thinking about it, Eve looked at Star-Lord in front of her. She had to catch Star-Lord and complete the task excellently, so that she could put forward her own requirements in front of Mr. Peter. Taking a deep breath, Eve cheered herself up and rushed forward. Star-Lord took the opportunity to jump onto the clock tower, and switch to a quadruple barrel gun. Try the elemental cocktail. Flames, lightning, frost and sonic attacks burst out at the same time, and the glass curtain wall of the entire street exploded. In the stands, Karkaroff watched Star-Lord's magic wand continuously release various elements, and thought he was releasing magic, and was stunned. Hermione and Harry, seeing Star-Lord's performance, were also surprised. It turns out that this somewhat funny Star-Lord is so powerful. In the center of the battlefield, Eve put her hands together, and the objects in her pupils continued to enlarge in front of her eyes, and all the energy that attacked her disappeared the moment it touched her. The laws of physics are invalid for her. Star-Lord's tactical eyepiece flashed wildly to warn that Eve had flown to the top of the clock tower. The girl tapped the metal clock with her fingertips, and the metal instantly reorganized into a torrent of liquid metal. Oh, no. No. This is not good. Star-Lord immediately flew into the sky and flew towards the city's cross-sea bridge. Eve kept chasing him in the sky, and the street lamps along the way automatically turned into bullets to bombard him. Star-Lord moved in a serpentine manner in the dense beams of light, constantly dodging the attacks of the street lamps. I got you, little Adam. After dodging the attack, Star-Lord suddenly turned back and flew over quickly, and the god energy created a rope to entangle her. Eve created a metal wall out of thin air, and the god energy rope was bounced off and hit the tanker, causing an explosion that blew a huge gap in the bridge deck. The girl walked out of the flames, and the flames around her body formed a protective shield, and the burned skirt was restored by atomic recombination. Watching Eve slowly approaching, Star-Lord's breathing mask sprayed white mist. He was a little surprised that Eve's ability was so buggy. I will catch you, Star-Lord. For Mr. Padrick, Star-Lord, what you said is easy to cause ambiguity. Ahem. Then try this. Star-Lord released countless god energy spheres, which came towards Eve in an overwhelming manner. Eve showed a solemn expression, and drew a portal with her hands, and all the attacking celestial energy balls were led into another space. When the last celestial energy ball was teleported away, Star-Lord suddenly grinned. The spider composed of tiny celestial energy bodies he released had already sneaked under the girl's feet, and suddenly materialized into ropes to tie Eve up. Seizing this 0.3-second flaw, Star-Lord switched the elemental gun to the final mode. "Good night, Miss Atom." As Star-Lord pulled the trigger, a blue-white beam of light penetrated the clouds. Eve created armor around her body at the critical moment, but the armor on her left arm was still vaporized by the powerful flames that brushed against it. Bang! In the deafening sound, Eve was shot away by Star-Lord the next second and fell heavily to the ground. Chapter 729, Star-Lord, my slight move is your limit. Is this the end? In the stands, Hermione asked Harry and Mark in surprise. Eve, the atomic girl, made Hermione's eyes light up. The beautiful and youthful girl was the kind of person Hermione wanted to be the most. And her ability amazed her. She could generate various substances, shields, light waves, and telekinesis out of thin air. This ability fascinated her more than magic. She thought that the opponent could easily defeat Star-Lord, who was only one hamburger away from obesity, but she didn't expect Eve to be defeated by Star-Lord so quickly. She stood up and clasped her hands in front of her chest with some nervousness. In the city, Star-Lord walked to Eve, who was lying on the ground, and shook his head. "Although it may sound a bit like bullying a girl, I won, Miss Atom." Eve, who was panting heavily, looked up at Star-Lord, who was standing. "No, I won't lose." Bang! Raising her fist, Eve slammed her fist into the ground, and pink energy hit the surface of the bridge. The bridge was instantly shattered under her huge bombardment. With a deafening sound, the bridge construction materials collapsed downwards. Star-Lord himself stumbled and fell backwards. Bang! Eve released energy shocks with both hands, and pink energy burst out, directly knocking Star-Lord, who was unable to react and lost his balance, flying out. Eve, who was lying on the ground, took the opportunity to stand up, and released pink energy ropes with both hands, wrapping Star-Lord in the air. Star-Lord's elemental gun was also entangled and unable to move. "Got you." Controlling the energy ropes with both hands, Eve was delighted and was about to pull Star-Lord over. Unexpectedly, after Star-Lord controlled him, he still released silver god energy without using the elemental gun. Feeling threatened, Eve looked down and found a huge Pac-Man opening his mouth and swallowing her. Eve, whose expression became a little dazed, had not yet reacted to why Pac-Man appeared under her feet. Bang! The mouth of Pac-Man swallowed Eve in an instant. The energy rope tied to Star-Lord's body also disappeared instantly. Clapping his hands, Star-Lord pressed the top of the mask. With a click, the gas mask covering his face opened, revealing Star-Lord's slightly proud face. Star-Lord secretly copied and made it based on the gas mask worn by himself in the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Marvel world. This is Star-Lord's extraordinary legend. Slowly falling from the air, Star-Lord looked at Eve, who was tightly wrapped in Pac-Man, and said to her, "You can conjure up all kinds of things, Miss Atom. In fact, I can too." Although she was very indignant and unconvinced, Eve, who was completely controlled, could only accept her fate of failure at this time. In the stands of Hogwarts School, Peter clapped softly. He didn't expect that Star-Lord could defeat the atomic girl Eve so easily. But on second thought, Eve is still in her infancy and is not proficient in her ability. In addition, Star-Lord's physical fitness is stronger than hers, so it is reasonable for him to lose. Karkaroff of Durmstrang School saw Star-Lord, who represented his school, easily defeat the atomic girl Eve, and nodded with satisfaction. It seems that although Star-Lord did not join Hogwarts like other children of the Padrick family, his magic level is not low, and he can easily defeat such a powerful opponent. Although he was a little proud in his heart, he was wary of Peter's family. Each of the children of the Padrick family has such extraordinary strength. As long as one of them wants to make trouble in the magic world, they are more terrifying than the mysterious man back then. Karkaroff glanced at Peter, who was surrounded by everyone, and a strong fear rose in his heart. What is the origin of this Peter Padrick? When Star-Lord walked out of the portal, he was greeted by cheers all over the sky. Star-Lord also waved to everyone happily. After seeing Peter's admiring eyes cast at him, Star-Lord's inner mood became even happier. Sure enough, he was already the limit of Loki and Raven with just a little effort. A few minutes later, after the referee finished scoring, Bagman called all the contestants to the tent. Wanda was still resting in the first A tent, and Victor Krum was still recovering from his injuries. Looking at the 5 people named Padrick in front of him, Bagman couldn't help but complain in his heart. This Triwizard tournament might as well be called the Padrick Farm Tournament. Although he was complaining, he hadn't recovered from the shock yet. He thought it was just an ordinary magic show, but he didn't expect to see such an incredible scene. Harry and Fleur's performance was still within his normal understanding. The performance of Raven, Star-Lord and Wanda made him begin to doubt the reality of this world. Is this incredible and powerful magic really owned by this world? Not only the performance of Star-Lord and others, but also the performance of the guarding bosses of these levels made him stunned. He suspected that any one of these things would wipe out the magic world. Fortunately, the Ministry of Magic has already clung to Peter's thigh. Various complicated thoughts turned through his mind, but Bagman's face did not change much. "You all did a great job, very great," little Bagman said to the group. As he spoke, he jumped into the tent briskly, looking very happy, as if he had just successfully completed the first level. "Well, I only have a few words to say. The second project will start at 9:30 a.m. on the 24th of next month. Before that, you can rest for a long time, but we have some questions for you to consider. What I want to say is that the next second project will be more difficult than the first one." He looked around at everyone. "Now Victor Crumb may not be able to participate in the next level because of his serious injury. If any of you are worried about your safety, you can withdraw now. There is nothing shameful about it. This is for your own life." After hearing Bagman say that they could withdraw now, Fleur looked at everyone with different expressions. Raven pursed her lips, and her expression did not change. Loki acted as if he didn't hear it, and continued to be distracted as before, and it was unknown what he was thinking. Tom sat by the stove, warming himself by the fire with a blank expression. Mark and Harry looked at each other. Harry was a little anxious and wanted to say something, but when he saw Mark shaking his head at him, he had to shut his mouth. Star-Lord said confidently, "I won't quit, because I will be the final champion." They're all younger brothers, Harry. Although Star-Lord's words were a bit arrogant, it seemed to be correct. Except for himself and Fleur, everyone else at the scene was Star-Lord's younger brothers and sisters. Ahem, Bagman coughed, pretending not to hear what Star-Lord said, and said to everyone, "It seems that no one has chosen to quit. Very good, you are all brave children. I wish you all good luck next." After saying a few words to everyone, Bagman walked out of the room. When Bagman left, Harry and Mark also walked out of the room with everyone else. Harry whispered to Mark, "I have a question." "Mark, what? Why is Miss Wanda so powerful?" "I mean, it seems that if Mr. Peter hadn't stopped her, I suspect she would not only kill that guy called Thanos, but also do something more terrible." Mark thought about it and said to Harry, "I think this is the power of chaos magic. One of the disadvantages of magic is that it is easy to be eroded by the mind, especially black magic, and the mysterious man is the same." He thought of the blackened raven who almost wiped them out in the world of the invincible young hero. If Clark hadn't smashed Raven's dream of dominating the farm with one punch, I'm afraid he really wouldn't be able to see his father now. As the two walked together, Mark suddenly remembered something and said to Harry, "By the way, Harry, who will you invite to the Christmas dance?" "What partner?" Harry asked puzzledly. Mark looked at him suspiciously, as if he thought he was joking. "Don't you know, Harry? Professor McGonagall said that the Christmas ball is open to students in the 4th grade and above, but if you like, you can invite a younger student. The Christmas ball is coming soon. It is a traditional part of the Triwizard Tournament and a great opportunity for us to interact with foreign guests. Who will you take to the Christmas ball, Harry?" Mark said this, and a sad expression appeared on his face before Harry answered. Except for Ginny, he didn't know any other girls in Hogwarts school. Who should he invite? Could it be Ginny? But he felt a little embarrassed. How about asking his father to help him out with some ideas? Mark was in trouble. Harry on the other side felt as if his internal organs were twisting and shrinking. Which partner? He felt his face flush. "I don't dance, but," Professor McGonagall said, "you have to dance." Mark said to him, "According to tradition, the dance is opened by the warriors and their partners." Hearing Mark say this, Harry suddenly imagined himself wearing a black top hat and a tuxedo. There was also a girl next to him, who was wearing a frilly skirt, the same as Aunt Petunia wore when she attended the dance in Uncle Vernon's company. Professor McGonagall said that this is a traditional practice. She said that as a warrior of Hogwarts and a representative of the school, we must do what everyone expects, so we must find ourselves a partner. Mark said with a frown, "But I don't know who would be willing to be my partner." Chapter 730 Mark, has your father ever become someone else's dance partner? Padrick's farm. Because the first round of the Triwizard Tournament was over, all the people who were drafted by Peter returned to the farm, except for Lyra, who returned to the Injustice World to investigate the gorilla incident. Gila and Fiona looked unhappy. As Peter's former enemies, the two felt very uncomfortable sitting in the farm. If it weren't for Peter's face, the two would probably leave directly. Wanda, Atomic Girl Eve, Thor, and Zatanna were in a good mood, sitting in the hall and discussing the performance of Raven and others. Do you know what I've been through? Thor burped after drinking a fresh beer and said to everyone, after the Thanos incident, I followed the guys from the Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon. He looked at Star-Lord and waved his hand. Sorry, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about that fat guy Star-Lord, although your size is only a hamburger away. Star-Lord, you're so hurtful. He was a little regretful that the opponent he chose was not Thor. Otherwise, he would definitely beat him up. Ignoring Star-Lord's resentful expression, Thor continued, I recruited Valkyrie, Bugman Mick, and Stoneman Conjure on Sakar. We became friends. Then Star-Lord and the others left, and I accidentally became a prisoner of Sakar. Do you know Goshianzen? He is the ruler of Sakar. He is a funny guy with a unique personality, and he likes to watch gladiatorial games, so I had a fight with the Hulk there. Who won? Azu asked curiously while eating the Chinese food on the plate. Well, of course it was me, Thor said bluntly. Do you know the previous champions of the arena? Men like Horseface, Ares, these are all previous champions. Well, I don't know who Manlike and Horseface are, Thor said drunkenly. I only saw the group photo of the previous champions. If I were to face them, I would definitely beat them to pulp. Peter was eating nearby, and fell into deep thought after hearing what Thor said. He remembered that the humanoid was a green monster with strong strength and diverse attack methods. It also had a strong self-healing ability, but its IQ was not high. It was a crazy fighting machine. As for Horseface, in his previous life, he remembered that Horseface was originally a planet guardian on a planet, but was transformed into a semi-mechanical biohuman, and his face was his symbol. In the comics, he and Thor fought over a disagreement, and even got the upper hand, knocking Thor to the ground, and successfully raised the hammer to obtain the power of Thor. In general, he was equal to Thor and stronger than Thor. Horseface was an absolute strong man, and it was not surprising that he could win the championship. What about you? Wanda, what have you been through? Clark asked Wanda about her life experience. Wanda glanced at Peter. I continue to live with my brother on the farm, and I have no other interests and hobbies except studying magic. She did not say that after she obtained the Dark Book, she studied the magic in it and now has a faint touch of the multiverse. She can now even see herself in a parallel world and observe the world from the other's perspective. And Wanda can now observe Peter's universe. Wanda would secretly peek at Peter on the farm whenever she wanted. But in order to prevent Peter, who has a keen sense of awareness, from discovering her, she would just peek from a distance most of the time. Although she knew it was wrong, she couldn't help making mistakes. She suspected that her behavior was controlled by the Dark Book. After vaguely realizing that the power of the Dark Book might corrode herself, Wanda had sealed the Dark Book. By the way, I met a witch named Agatha Harkness, and we had a conflict, but I have sealed her up. Wanda recounted her experience. She moved near the farm and became my neighbor. At first I thought she was a good person, but I found out her purpose was to seize my chaos magic. She set up a trick to imprison me in her magic circle, making all my magic ineffective, but in the end I broke her imprisonment one by one, and finally we had a big battle. Clark was attracted by Wanda's story, so you won in the end. Wanda put down the knife and fork in her hand and said, yes, I finally gathered all the magical power in my body and launched a fatal blow to her, defeating her completely, but I did not kill her. Instead, I abolished all her magic, erased her memory, and imprisoned her in a mortal body, so that she could never leave the vicinity of Patrick's farm. Peter's expression became complicated when he heard Wanda say that she sealed the witch Agatha and kept her near the farm. Witch Agatha is also a legendary figure. You two witches who are destined to be entangled finally fought. Little Horace, who was sitting on Peter's left, asked Peter curiously, Emperor Dad, who is Agatha? She is a legendary wizard who has been active since the 17th century in Salem, Massachusetts, where she formed her own witch group. However, the Salem witch trial affected Agatha and her witch group. Peter told Agatha's information. During the Salem witch trial, she was accused of using dark magic by her own sect. After that, she was burned to death on the stake by her enemies, and then she was resurrected. After listening to Peter's story, Wanda's face was full of surprise. Sir, you actually know witch Agatha? Yes, I always know what I want to know. Wanda, I must remind you that Witch Agatha will not be easily defeated. Even if you seal her up, she will eventually break free from control." Peter cast a serious look at Wanda. Although he said to be careful about Agatha the Witch, Peter was more worried about whether Wanda would be affected by the Dark Book. Since Agatha the Witch had already appeared, the Dark Book was likely in Wanda's hands. "I'll be careful, sir," Wanda said to Peter. In an instant, looking at Peter in front of her, she seemed to see Peter's figure appearing in the Marvel farm. There were only her brother Quicksilver, herself and Peter, living together. Two twin boys were running around her and Peter. "Wanda, are you okay?" Peter's voice awakened Wanda, who was a little dazed. "Yes, sir, you seem to be a little tired and nervous. Maybe you can stay here for a few more days." Peter looked at Wanda and said to her. "Okay, sir." Wanda adjusted her mood and smiled back at Peter. The next day, a short-haired girl in the third year of Hufflepuff College, who Mark had never spoken to before, took the initiative to invite Mark to go to the dance with her. Mark was shocked and refused without even thinking about it. The girl who was rejected by Mark walked away, looking very hurt. So throughout the history of magic class, Mark had to endure Seamus and Ron's sarcasm and ridicule of the rejected girl. The next day, two more girls came to invite him. One was a second year, and the other was a fifth year. Mark didn't expect that he would be invited by a fifth-year student. Not only Mark, but Harry was also invited. A second-year girl with freckles on her face wanted to invite him. "She's pretty," the fifth year, after Ron laughed enough, he said to Mark impartially. "But, she's a foot taller than me," Mark said in a daze. "Imagine, I dance with her, it would be embarrassing." He suddenly remembered what Hermione said about Crumb. They like him just because he's famous. Mark now doubted whether those girls who invited him to dance as a partner would still be willing to go to the dance with him if he was not a school warrior. Harry also had the same idea as Mark. He was also seriously unconfident. Harry even wondered if any girl would be willing to date him if he hadn't become a warrior. Then he asked himself, if it was Chu Zhang who took the initiative to invite him, would he still consider this issue? I think, Mark wanted to say to Ron, "I want to invite Ginny." But he was afraid that Ron would hide him. After coughing, he finally said, "I wonder who Raven, Tom, Loki and Star-Lord will invite as a dance partner." Hearing what he said, Ron immediately became interested. "Everyone says that Raven is obsessed with her father. Maybe boys don't dare to invite her. Tom is also hard to guess because I have never heard of any scandals between him and any girls. He looks like the kind of person who is serious and devotes himself to his career. Although he is a little majestic, he will also help students with learning difficulties. Everyone says he is the little dean and that he will become the dean of Ravenclaw in the future," Ron said, clapping his hands. "As for Loki, I know who Loki will invite. She and Chu Zhang are both very familiar with each other. Maybe Chu Zhang will become his dance partner." Harry felt like he was struck by lightning when he heard Ron's words. Chu Zhang became Loki's dance partner. What should I do? Harry was in a state of confusion when Fleur came over. "Hi, Harry." Mark, Fleur, wearing a hat and dressed in a youthful and beautiful outfit, smiled and greeted the two. "Hello, Fleur," Mark spoke to her a little embarrassedly. "Excuse me, Mark, is your father, Peter Padrick, here?" After exchanging a few pleasantries with a few people, Fleur indirectly stated her purpose. "He should be at home." "That's right. I want to ask, has Mr. Padrick accepted someone's invitation to be a Christmas dance partner?" Chapter 731 The Ugly Duckling Turns into a Swan? "I was invited to witness it?" Mark was immediately embarrassed. "I think my father was not invited to be someone else's dance partner." Mark looked at Harry and Ron, who were also stunned, and whispered. "That's good." Fleur smiled at Mark reservedly. "I want to invite Mr. Peter Padrick to be my dance partner." "Mr. Padrick, can you pass on my invitation for me? I think it should be no problem," Mark stuttered. "Thank you." After thanking Mark, Fleur turned and left gracefully. Actually, Ron looked at Fleur's back and said to Mark, "Mark, I suspect that your father also has Fleur's physique." Mark coughed, and although he thought so in his heart, he adhered to the principle of protecting his father and glared at Ron. "Ron, if you say this and Raven hears her, she will definitely beat you up." Hearing Mark say Raven's name, Ron immediately looked around guiltily. "Okay, this is my fault, don't tell Raven." Ron was still a little scared of Raven. Last time Malfoy offended her, Raven used magic to punish him, and he vomited slugs in the common room for a whole day. At night, Raven, who had been worried, found Peter. What's the matter, Raven? Peter was in the room, looking at Raven's hesitant expression, and asked her. Raven sat on the bed and said to Peter, "It's about the Christmas dance, Dad. Can you be my dance partner?" "Me?" Peter frowned when he heard it. "I'm your dad. How can I be your dance partner? And I've been invited." Raven didn't show any expression when she heard Peter refuse, but was a little frustrated. But when she heard someone invite Peter, she immediately exploded. Who invited you, Dad? Was it Fleur?" Raven stood up, clenched her fists, and said angrily, "Dad, you can't agree to Fleur. She is a charm." "You are racist, Raven," Peter said righteously. "Raven," she wanted to say, "Dad, I learned this from you," but she opened her mouth and swallowed the words in her heart. "So did you promise her, Dad?" "No." Before Raven could be happy, she heard Peter say, "Because I promised Hermione." Hermione? Raven's eyes widened immediately. She didn't expect that her opponent was the Miss Know-It-All. "Yeah, but I'm not interested in dancing, and it's an activity for you young people." "I just accompanied her for a while and then left." Peter said something that made Raven breathe a sigh of relief. But, although she felt a little better, Raven was still quite dissatisfied. "Dad, you look just like our peers, not old at all, and Hermione is so vain." "Why do you think she is vain?" Peter asked Raven in surprise. "Because this way she can get a lot of attention." Peter shook his head and put his hand on Raven's hair and touched it. "Hermione just wants to make some changes and change everyone's impression." He remembered that Hermione was like this, an ugly duckling turning into a swan and becoming Cinderella. For her, this was a moment of true maturity, because everyone began to see her from a different perspective. The other party had the courage to invite her to witness an important moment in his life, and he couldn't refuse. "What impression, Dad? You'll know when the time comes." Then Peter remembered something and asked her, "Has your dance partner not been decided yet?" "No." So I want to ask you for help, Dad," Raven said a little embarrassedly. Peter stroked the beard on his chin. "How about Harry? He probably already has a dance partner, and we don't know each other very well." "What about Thor? He looks like the kind of muscular, simple-minded guy. I think he will mess everything up." "What about Bruce? He looks old-fashioned and a little old." "Peter, you still picked one." Raven saw Peter's dissatisfied look and knew that if she kept picking and choosing, Peter would definitely be impatient. Finally, she could only reluctantly say, "Then let's invite Bruce. He used to go in and out of the upper class. He must know these social etiquettes and won't make me embarrassed." "Dad, can you invite him? It shouldn't be a big problem." "Thank you, Dad." Raven came up and hugged Peter gently. A few days later, Christmas. At 5 o'clock, Hermione said early that she would go to prepare. "What, you need 3 hours?" Ron asked Hermione in disbelief. There were many students playing snowballs in the snow. Ron was distracted like this, and was hit hard on the cheek by a big snowball thrown by George. "Who are you going with?" "Hermione," he shouted at Hermione's back, but Hermione just waved her hand and quickly walked into the castle on the stone steps. Ron looked at Harry and Mark depressedly. The two also shook their heads to indicate that they didn't know. At 7 o'clock, the sky was dark and it was not easy to aim, so the students of Hogwarts gave up the snowball fight and returned to the common room. The fat lady in the portrait sat in the frame with her friend, Violet, who was downstairs. Both of them looked dizzy and drunk. At the bottom of the portrait, there were several empty boxes of chocolate with liquor fillings. Bright light. "Yes, that's it. This is the password." After hearing the student's password, she turned forward with a chuckle and let them in. Harry, Ron, Dean and Neville changed into their own robes in the dormitory upstairs, and each of them looked uneasy. Mark was relatively calm because he had successfully invited Ginny. Although Harry and others were nervous, no one was as frustrated as Ron. Ron looked at himself in front of the long mirror in the corner, with a horrified expression on his face. Because the robe he was wearing now was like a skirt worn by girls. In order to make himself look more manly, Ron made a desperate move and cast a cutting spell on the folds and lace. It worked, at least the lace on the clothes was gone. Walking into the common room, Mark felt that the students inside looked strange, because the students were no longer wearing black robes, but colorful robes. Parvati was waiting for Harry at the bottom of the stairs. Parvati was a beautiful black-haired Indian girl. She looked very beautiful indeed, wearing a striking pink robe, her black hair braided with gold ribbons, and the gold bracelets on her wrists sparkled. Harry was relieved to see that she didn't giggle. "Well, you are very beautiful, Parvati," Harry said unnaturally. He turned around and found that Mark and Ginny had come together. Ginny was wearing a light pink dress, and she was very happy, chattering around Mark. The entrance hall was also crowded with students, and everyone was circling back and forth, waiting for 8 o'clock to come. Some students were going to meet their partners from other houses, and were squeezing sideways in the crowd. Parvati found her sister Padma and led her over to meet Harry and Mark. "Hello, Harry, Mark," Padma greeted the two. She was as beautiful as her sister and wore a bright green robe. However, she seemed to have no interest in Ron being her partner. She kept looking Mark up and down, her eyes lingering on the fuzzy collar and cuffs of his robe. As they were talking, they saw Fleur Delacour coming over. Fleur was wearing a silver-gray satin robe and was stunningly beautiful. She was accompanied by Roger Davis, the captain of the Ravenclaw Quidditch team. However, Fleur looked unhappy and kept a distance from her partner. When she walked up to Mark, she glared at him. Ron whispered to Mark, "She's unhappy because you didn't help him invite Mr. Padraic," Mark said depressedly. "It's not my fault. I can't make Dad listen to me." Ron patted Mark's shoulder and glanced at his sister Ginny. Although Mark was his good friend, he still felt a little weird about his sister becoming Mark's dance partner. Ahem. "Where's Hermione?" Ron suddenly realized that he hadn't seen Hermione. He was looking for Hermione when the front door of the hall opened, and Mark saw Professor Karkaroff and the students of Durmstrang walk in. Professor McGonagall's voice rang out in the hall, "Warriors, please come over here." Professor McGonagall tonight was wearing a red plaid robe, and a circle of ugly thistle wreaths decorated on the brim of her hat. After Harry looked around at the students around him, he saw someone coming in. Everyone made way for the person coming in. It seemed that some important person had entered the noisy hall. The crowd made way, and Harry and Ron saw Peter coming in with a female companion. The female companion standing next to her was a tall, beautiful girl in a blue robe. Harry took a look and moved his eyes away. But soon he turned back and stared at the beautiful girl in blue with wide eyes. That was Hermione. But she didn't look like Hermione at all. Hermione did something to her own hair, and they were no longer messy, but became soft and shiny, and tied into an elegant bun at the back of her head. She was wearing a robe made of a flowing light purple-blue fabric, and for some reason, her temperament was different. Maybe it was just because she took off the more than 20 thick books she usually carried. Hermione looked a little nervous when she smiled, but her teeth were not as big as before, and they looked very beautiful. Ron also found that the beautiful girl next to Peter was Hermione. He opened his mouth in surprise. How is this possible? Chapter 732. Who will be Wanda and her friend's Christmas dance partner? "Hello, Harry." Hermione saw Harry and his dance partner Parvati and came over to greet them. "Hello, Parvati." Parvati stared at Hermione with an undisguised look of suspicion. She was not the only one who looked at Hermione with suspicion. When the door of the hall opened, many people cast dissatisfied glances at Hermione. Many people were disgusted by Hermione's behavior of showing off, as she not only invited Peter to be her dance partner, but also turned from an ugly duckling into Cinderella. Pansy Parkinson glared at Hermione fiercely as she walked by with Malfoy's arm around her. Malfoy opened his mouth slightly, wanting to say something, but in the end he said nothing. Ron walked straight past Hermione without even looking at her. Mark and Ginny stared at Hermione blankly, as if they were getting to know her all over again. "Hermione's dance partner is Mr. Padraic," Ginny asked Mark in a low voice. "This is the first time I know this, too," Mark whispered to Ginny. "Dad never told me about this before." Ginny looked at Hermione in surprise. "She looks very beautiful. I never noticed it before." Hermione was talking to Peter, and seemed to notice Ginny's gaze, raised her head and smiled at her. The two were whispering about Hermione's changes, and Mark noticed that Raven and her dance partner also appeared. Raven entered the auditorium with Bruce, a little depressed. Bruce, wearing a dinner suit, looked around and found that his outfit seemed to be somewhat out of tune with these students in robes, and coughed awkwardly. His life in Gotham is now a mess. Gotham is infected with the epidemic of crime, and all his enemies begin to show up together, turning his life into turmoil. Now Bruce has vaguely investigated that he is being played in the hands of a guy called Silence. These villains act as pawns to avenge Batman in the game carefully designed by Silence. Although he was in a state of panic, he still took time out to appear on the scene as Raven's dance partner after receiving Peter's invitation. "Hey, Zach," Bruce was curiously looking at this new magical world, and happened to meet his acquaintance Zatanna. He walked over to greet Zatanna. "Bruce, "You are Raven's Christmas dance partner. How surprising," Zatanna said to him with a little surprise. "I thought you were not interested in this kind of dance, and you also stayed away from magic." "No, Zach. In fact, I am definitely not a muggle when it comes to magic." Bruce had already roughly understood what kind of world this was before coming here. He was quite surprised by the magical world like Hogwarts. "Before becoming Batman, I spent more than 10 years looking for a way to save Gotham City. I have tried gods, magic, science, religion or other things. Although these cannot save Gotham City, my magic talent is not bad, but this is different, Bruce." Zatanna put down the wine glass in her hand and said to him, "In this world, what matters is the idealistic magic talent, while in our world, the essence of magic is equal exchange. Speaking of which, if you had chosen to stay with my father, you might have become an extremely good magician." Zatanna talked about the previous things again. Raven, who was standing aside, saw that Bruce, as her dance partner, had actually left her to talk to Zatanna. She snorted angrily and immediately went to find Peter. After Raven and Bruce appeared, Loki and his dance partner Zhang-Chu also appeared in the auditorium. Zhang-Chu gently took Loki's arm and walked over with a smile under the gaze of everyone. Seeing this scene, Harry suddenly felt that he was not well. Loki really invited Zhang-Chu. Harry looked around with a depressed look, and then he saw Tom and his partner in the crowd. Tom's partner was a girl with golden curly hair and long eyelashes. She had a pair of cute dimples and looked very cute. Harry scratched his head in confusion. He had some impression of this girl. He remembered that she seemed to be a second-year student, the sister of Daphne Greengrass. And she seemed to be the youngest daughter of the ancient pure-blood family, the Greengrass family. On the other side, Peter also noticed Tom's partner. He didn't expect Tom to choose Astoria Greengrass. Isn't this the future wife of Malfoy? He remembered that although this girl was from a pure-blood family, she was not as stingy or arrogant as other famous families. Instead, she was dignified, generous and considerate. Most importantly, this girl never believed in pure-blood superiority and always had a friendly attitude towards muggles and ordinary people. In the original world line, Lucius and Narcissa were very disappointed with the wife chosen by their son Malfoy. They had high hopes for this girl from the 28th Saint family, but Astoria refused to instill in her son the idea that muggles are scum, so family gatherings are often full of tension. Voldemort, who believes in the supremacy of blood, chose a girl who is tolerant and does not believe in blood as his dance partner. Does this prove that Tom now does not have the extreme idea of bloodline theory before? Is Tom's mind gradually becoming peaceful? Looking at Tom with a calm face, Peter fell into deep thought. While Peter was thinking, Star-Lord came out with his dance partner. Star-Lord's dance partner was Eve, the atomic girl. Regarding the issue of dance partners, Star-Lord did not have a particular person to invite. Finally, after considering a circle of people he knew, he chose to invite Eve, the atomic girl. Star-Lord even planned to go to Smallville to invite Chloe if Eve did not accept his invitation. He only knew a few women. The ones who had a good relationship were Chloe and Lana from Smallville. Fortunately, Eve did not reject him. However, Star-Lord guessed that Eve's idea was to sneak into the Christmas ball. After all, this pink girl seemed to be full of curiosity about a magic world from the beginning. The last warrior to appear was Wanda. Wanda's dance partner was her brother Quicksilver. Originally, she wanted Peter to be her dance partner, but she didn't expect that someone else got there first, so Wanda had to pull her brother Quicksilver to make up the number. After Quicksilver entered the Christmas ball, he looked at the magic items around him curiously and exclaimed, as if he had come to a fantasy world. "Don't act like a fool, Pietro." Wanda glared at Quicksilver with dissatisfaction and said to him, "I don't believe that you didn't have such a dream when you were a child. Look, the magic world, everything is new and strange. We are like Peter Pan, in the hometown of fairies," Quicksilver chattered to Wanda. "This is not the home of goblins. If you continue to act like an unworldly person, I might really turn you into a goblin." Wanda was threatening Quicksilver. When she saw Peter looking at her, she immediately pulled Quicksilver's clothes and smiled at Peter. After all the warriors and dancers entered, the students sat down in the auditorium. Professor McGonagall asked the warriors and their dancers to line up 2 by 2 and follow her in. As the warriors and dancers filed in and walked towards the large round table in front of the auditorium where the judges sat, the students in the auditorium applauded enthusiastically. Quicksilver let his sister Wanda hold his hand and looked around in shock. The walls of the auditorium were covered with glittering silver frost, the ceiling was a starry night sky, and there were hundreds of mistletoe branches and ivy garlands hanging. 100 small tables with lanterns appeared in the auditorium, and 10 people sat at each table. Harry walked in the middle, concentrating his mind and being careful not to trip. Parvati, Harry's dancing partner, seemed very happy, smiling brightly at everyone and leading Harry forward. Harry felt like a circus dog, being led by her to perform tricks. When he approached the main guest seat, he saw Ron and his dancing partner Padma. Ron was squinting his eyes and watching Hermione walk by, and Padma had a sullen face and seemed angry. The warriors came to the front of the main guest seat, and Dumbledore smiled. Professor McGonagall was talking to Peter, who was walking in the front. When she saw Dumbledore coming, she gave up her seat to him so that Peter and Dumbledore could talk. Ludo Bagman was wearing a purple robe with yellow stars on it tonight. He clapped enthusiastically with everyone else. Madame Maxime took off her usual black satin uniform and wore a lavender robe that looked very distinctive. After sitting down at the table, Harry found that there was no food on the shining golden plate, but there was a small menu in front of everyone. Harry picked up his menu with some doubt and uncertainty. He looked around and found that there was no waiter around. He cast his eyes on Dumbledore, who looked at his menu carefully, then said very clearly to his plate, "Pork chop," then the pork chop appeared immediately. Seeing Dumbledore's performance, the others at the table suddenly realized and followed Dumbledore's example, ordering their favorite food on the plate. Harry looked up at Hermione, wanting to know how she felt about this more complicated new dining style. This must mean that the house elves would have to do more work. Hermione was always very concerned about whether the house elves were abused and had heavy physical labor. However, for the first time, Hermione seemed to have forgotten about food and house elves. She was now talking happily with Peter and seemed to have not paid attention to what she was eating at all, nor did she pay any attention to the house elves. Chapter 733 The Beginning of the Galactic War. A few minutes later, Hermione finally remembered that she had a few friends, named Harry and Ron. Hermione came over and sat in the chair vacated by Parvati. The Parvati sisters had been driven away by the two of them. Harry kept looking at Zhang-Chu, and Ron kept looking at Hermione, not even paying attention to the two sisters, so the two angry sisters left directly. Hermione's cheeks were slightly red. "Hello, Hermione," Harry greeted Hermione, while Ron sat next to him without saying a word. "It's hot, isn't it?" Hermione said, fanning herself with her palms. "Walking here with Mr. Padraic just now makes me feel a little hot." "This is the first time I feel this way," Ron looked at her sourly. "The first time? I guess you have been planning this for a long time, Hermione." Ron, who was a little unhappy, said to Hermione, "You really surprised all of us today, Hermione." Hermione looked at him in surprise. "What's wrong with you, Ron? If you don't know, Hermione," Ron said to her sarcastically. "I don't want to tell you either." Hermione looked at him in surprise, and then looked at Harry. Harry shrugged his shoulders with an expression of "I don't know anything." "Ron, what's wrong with you, Mr. Padraic is Mark and Raven's father. He is our elder," Ron said to her sternly. "He is not our peer. Mr. Padraic is about the same age as your parents." "Hermione, you are." Ron tried hard to search his brain for powerful words to describe Hermione's heinous crime. "Your behavior is wrong. This is what you did." Hermione opened her mouth in surprise and looked at Ron as if she was looking at a stranger. "Don't talk nonsense." After a moment, Hermione looked at her coldly and said, "This is just a Christmas ball. I invited Mr. Padraic to be my dance partner, which doesn't mean anything. Besides, the two of us haven't danced yet. Even if we danced, what would it matter? What does this mean? Why can't I do this?" Ron decided to ignore these words. "You probably invited Mr. Padraic in the stands of the previous Triwizard tournament, right?" "Yes, that's right," Hermione said. The blush on her cheeks became brighter. "So what? So you have been planning this for a long time. This is not something shameful. Why do you use such words? Don't act like we are very familiar with each other, Ron. You are just my friend. You have no right to interfere with my choice." "Really?" Ron said with an unhappy expression. "I am not your friend. At least I will not invite my friend's father or mother to be my dance partner. You are simply unreasonable." Hermione was furious. "How can you say such things? I dance with my favorite idol, and you say such sarcastic words?" "Harry," she looked at Harry, "tell me, what's wrong with my behavior?" Without waiting for Harry to answer, Ron said sarcastically, Mr. Padraic is not an ordinary idol, and your behavior is also weird. What's weird about me? It's you who is weird and unreasonable. I'm just unreasonable, but you have something to hide. What's wrong with me? Explain it to me clearly. The two people's argument became more and more intense, and the students who were affected turned around and glared at the two. Ron, Harry whispered to Ron, I don't think there's anything wrong with Hermione inviting Mr. Padraic. Ron ignored Harry's words. After Hermione glanced at the two people, she left angrily and walked towards Peter. Ron looked at her back, with an expression of anger and relief on his face. On the other side, Diana was standing in front of Peter, looking at him covetously. I didn't expect, Peter, that you would become the object of jealousy among the children. Peter was calm and collected. He picked up the wine glass next to him and looked at Bombshell and Way not far away, who were curiously changing various foods on the plate. He said to Diana, you know, Diana, I still have a certain influence in the Hogwarts world. Just like Professor Lockhart, it's normal to satisfy a fan's small request. Really? Diana, who was full of anger, was not so easy to deal with. She took a step closer to Peter and looked into his eyes. This is not like satisfying a fan's small request. The dance partner for the Christmas dance. This is the first time a girl invites a dance partner, which is very important for a girl who is just beginning to fall in love. Seeing that Diana was getting more and more distant, Peter looked aside and found Clark and Zoo who were sitting together talking about something. It's you two. John, Clark, come here. Peter waved his hand and called Clark and Zoo over. Looking at the two people who were a little confused, Peter said to them with a serious expression, as a Christmas dance, isn't it necessary to have dance partners? Why didn't you two bring your own dance partners? Peter shifted his firepower to the two of them. You two are already in college, and you don't have a girlfriend yet? Clark, you didn't invite Louise, Chloe, and Lena? Zoo, didn't you invite Starlight and Maeve? Azu was stunned for a moment, glanced at Diana next to him, organized his words and said, I am not familiar with them, and they think I am no different from Azu in the black robe world. I don't want to dance in this weird atmosphere. Don't you have any female friends at Piltover University? Peter continued to transform into a marriage-urging parent and interrogated Azu about his college life. No, besides, I'm not a giant baby who lacks love. Why do I have to find a girl I don't know to love? Peter, although it sounds reasonable, is this the reason why you are single? Dad, you can just do it when it comes to falling in love. Then Azu added, you haven't even gotten married, so I'm not in a hurry. When Peter heard this, veins popped out on his forehead. You are really rebellious. You dare to use this kind of thing to confront your dad. What do you mean I haven't even gotten married, John? We are talking about you, don't involve me. Peter originally wanted to teach Zoo a lesson and divert Diana's firepower, but he didn't expect Zoo to target himself. John, there's a big problem with your view on love, Peter said to Zoo with a serious expression. You don't want to stay single forever, do you? No, Dad, Zoo pinched his waist, took a deep breath, and looked around. I have more important things to do. What more important things? Make the Padraic family great again. Although he said this, Zoo complained in his heart. People like Raven and Wanda are eyeing him. Clark and Mark are getting stronger and stronger. And now his position as the eldest son is about to be lost, and he wants to fall in love? Bullshit. Peter, he found that Zoo's ability to talk nonsense is getting stronger and stronger. What about you? Clark, Peter turned his eyes to Clark. I'm not a warrior, so I don't have to have a dance partner. Clark originally wanted to invite Lana, but when he thought about the possibility of being rejected by Lana, he finally did not muster up the courage to invite her. It's just that he was embarrassed to say his behavior, so he pretended to be indifferent. Peter wanted to continue asking Clark something, but when he saw Hermione coming, he had to swallow what he wanted to say. The next day, after Christmas, everyone invited by Peter returned to their own world one after another. The Kryptonian female adjutant went to Boston to reunite with Rhea and Kara. The two encountered a tricky villain in Boston, and Peter asked her to help two Kryptonian compatriots. The goddess of death Hela returned to the underworld. Zatanna and Bruce returned to Gotham to continue dealing with Silence. Atomic Girl Eve said that she would stay in Hogwarts for a few days before returning to the world of invincible young heroes. Thor returned to the Marvel world. Mara returned to the underwater world. Diana and the Vixen transformed into superheroes, and were busy going to Metropolis to save mankind. Only Wanda and Quicksilver stayed on the farm to rest for a few days. Peter was worried that Wanda's spirit would be corrupted and affected by the Dark Book, so he suggested that she recuperate on the farm for a while. Although Raven was very unhappy with Wanda staying. "So, what is the second level of the Tree Wizard Tournament?" Gwen asked Peter standing in the living room. "Why are you so interested?" "Gwen, you don't want to leak the questions to the warriors participating in the competition, do you?" Boom asked curiously on the side. "No, of course I won't. I am firmly against cheating. Well, sometimes when I take exams, I can't help but look at other people's answers, but that's only occasionally." Gwen sat down on the sofa and said to Boom, who suspected that she had leaked the questions. In the whole room, except for those who went to school or went out, there were only Peter, Boom, Gwen and Horace. "I know," little Horace said. "The Emperor said that the second level is mermaids, the mermaids under the Black Lake of Hogwarts. That was in the past." Peter interrupted Horace. "If we let Raven and the others go underwater to defeat the mermaids and rescue their friends now, it will not be difficult for them." Gwen sat on the sofa, quietly tasting the coffee that Peter made for her. After hearing what Peter said, she asked him curiously, "What is the second level now?" Peter cast his eyes to the bright spring light outside, and said slowly, "I will let them adapt to the intensity of the Galactic War in advance." Galactic War. Hearing this word, Horace was slightly stunned. Could it be the kind of interstellar war that he knew about, the one that set the galaxy on fire? Gwen didn't know what Peter meant. But when she saw the evil smile at the corner of Peter's mouth, she knew that Raven and Star-Lord were in trouble. Chapter 734 Mark got into trouble. "Horace, you said you know how to make power armor, right?" Peter turned his gaze to Horace and asked him about how to make power armor. "Yes, but the materials needed to make power armor are very precious and expensive. In addition, the maker needs to master the skills related to related machinery and materials." Little Horace frowned and said to Peter, "Emperor Dad, power armor is not like bolters and chain swords. Bomb and way, I can make them on the farm. It requires a very high level of technology and craftsmanship." Gwen, who was next to him, heard little Horace and Peter talking about power armor, and asked Horace in confusion, "Little Wooming, what is power armor?" "It is an advanced self-powered combat armor suit," little Horace explained to Gwen. "Power armor is a completely airtight armor that can completely isolate the wearer from the dangerous external environment. Each set of power armor has a full set of life support systems for use in harsh environments, as well as an automatic medical system that can provide a certain degree of first aid when the wearer is injured. In addition, the armor also provides the wearer with advanced target threat analysis and locking systems." Gwen listened to little Horace's introduction and felt confused. "I don't understand it at all. Can you give a simpler introduction?" "To be precise, it is an armor that protects the wearer from enemy firepower while providing enhanced strength and speed, allowing space warriors to survive and fight in extreme combat conditions." Gwen opened her mouth in surprise after hearing Horace's introduction. "Mr. Peter, don't tell me that the second level of the Tree Wizard Tournament is to let Harry and Raven and others wear power armor to fight in an interstellar war." "Not exactly." Peter shook his head. "Star-Lord and Raven are strong, so they don't have to worry if they fight in extreme environments, but for Harry, Fleur and Tom, their physical fitness cannot withstand these extreme environments and various injuries. These power armors are insurance for Harry and others." Gwen was immediately numb when she heard Peter's words. "Is the second level of the Tree Wizard Tournament so dangerous?" "Dad," Boom got down from the sofa and asked Peter expectantly, "can you give me a set of power armor?" Wade came into the house at some point and said to Peter excitedly, "Dad, I want one too." Looking at the two excited big Lolita, Peter bent down and picked them up. "Of course, but it will take time, and we need someone's help to complete it." Boom, who was held by Peter, blinked and said to him, "I know who it is." "Dad? You mean Uncle Stark?" "Right, yes." Peter scratched Boom's nose. "Your Uncle Stark is the best at making armor. I need to go to Stark's house and talk to him about the making of power armor." Peter said he wanted to go to the Marvel world. Hearing that Peter was going to see Stark, Boom and Way immediately raised their hands, and little Horace said he wanted to go with him. Gwen, who loves to join in the fun, also said that Peter couldn't leave her behind. There was no choice, so Peter had to take these people to the Marvel world together. Stark Manor. Peter and Gwen had just entered the Marvel world and walked into the manor when they heard a babyish voice behind them. "Don't move." Peter turned around when he heard the voice and was surprised to find a cute little girl holding the palm cannon of the Iron Man suit in her hand, aiming at everyone. "My Iron Man armor can fire." Seeing that Peter didn't seem to be afraid, the little girl reminded Peter again. But I don't think it can fire. Peter walked over and touched the little girl's hair. You are Morgan Stark, right? Do you recognize me? Morgan Stark's face showed a very surprised expression. Of course, your father and I are friends. Peter recognized the other party as Morgan Stark, the daughter of Stark and Pepper. He didn't expect that she would grow up so fast. The last time he saw this little girl, she couldn't speak, but now she is so big. Reaching out his hand, Peter touched the little girl's chubby round face. Dad's friend, Morgan didn't notice Peter's big hand, rubbing her face, tilting her head and asking Peter, but I know all of Dad's friends, Uncle Captain, Uncle Rod, and Uncle Happy. As she spoke, she counted on her little fingers. I'm Uncle Peter. Peter picked Morgan up. Remember this time, and you won't forget next time. He was holding Morgan when Pepper came over. Hey, Peter. Pepper was a little surprised to see Peter, and came over excitedly to greet Peter. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Yeah, I've been busy recently and can't spare the time. Peter put Morgan down, shook hands with Pepper, and introduced Horace and Gwen to her. This is Horace, my little son, and this is Gwen Stacy, the female Spider-Man who travels across the universe. As for Boom and V, you are very familiar with them. Gwen, who is next to him, heard Peter say that he was Spider-Man and glared at him quietly. Spider-Man? Isn't Spider-Man Peter Parker? Tony was with him before and cracked down on a gangster smuggling business. Pepper looked at Gwen in surprise. Gwen smiled awkwardly. Actually, I am Spider-Man from a parallel universe. In our universe, I became Spider-Man by accident. It's incredible. Are there countless Spider-Men in countless parallel universes? Pepper continued to ask curiously. Gwen smiled and politely replied to her, I guess so. Pepper wanted to ask something else, but Tony Stark came out. Hey, Peter, long time no see. Tony, wearing sunglasses, came over and pointed at Gwen and Horace and said, Are these your newborn son and daughter? Gwen shook her head awkwardly. No, I'm not Mr. Peter's daughter. I'm Gwen Stacy. Horace responded politely. I'm Horace Patrick, the youngest son of Emperor Dad. Tony, after a pause, he took off his sunglasses. What is Emperor Dad? A respectful title. Okay, let's talk about business. Peter was too lazy to chat with him and started to discuss business with Tony. Wait, I have something to discuss with you. Tony stopped Peter from continuing to talk and asked him, You know a woman named Jane Foster, right? Jane? Peter was slightly stunned when he heard Tony mention Jane's name. When he first came to the Marvel world, he met Jane in New Mexico. Yes, I know her. What's wrong? Peter asked Tony after a pause. Not very good. She is ill now. She once asked me about you. Tony told the news that Jane was ill. Where is she? After hearing the news, Peter frowned and asked Tony. He clearly gave Jane a grain of sand. Why didn't Jane contact him? On the other side, at Hogwarts, Mark also encountered trouble. Malfoy reached into the pocket of his robe, took out a folded newspaper, and threw it to Harry and Mark. You can read it yourself, Malfoy said to everyone, although I really don't want to reveal this news to you, Potter. He smiled smugly, and Harry grabbed the newspaper and unfolded it. Mark came over and looked at the content of the newspaper with him. This is an article with a photo of Hagrid on it, and the expression on his face looked sneaky. A big mistake by Dumbledore. Our special correspondent Rita Skeeter reports that the eccentric Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, has always dared to hire controversial teachers. In September this year, he hired Mad-Eye Moody as the teacher of defense against the dark arts. This decision surprised many people in the Ministry of Magic. Moody is a notorious vicious man in a former order. It is well known that he will attack anyone who suddenly moves in front of him. However, compared with a half-human, half-demon hired by Dumbledore to teach the protection of magical creatures class, Mad-Eye Moody is serious, responsible, and kind. Seeing the word half-human, half-demon, Harry and Mark looked at each other. Rubeus Hagrid admitted that he was expelled from Hogwarts in his third year and has been serving as the school's gamekeeper ever since. Last year, Hagrid even used his mysterious influence on the headmaster to win over many more qualified candidates and secure himself the position of Care of Magical Creatures teacher. Hagrid abused his new power and brought in a series of terrible animals to scare the students in his charge. In a series of classes that many people call very scary, Hagrid has caused several students to be injured and disabled, and Dumbledore turned a blind eye to it. We can exclusively reveal that his mother is the giantess Friedwifer, whose whereabouts are currently unknown. The giants are cruel and bloodthirsty by nature. They were on the verge of extinction due to cannibalism in the last century. The only dozen or so remaining joined the you-know-who. During the White Terror period ruled by the you-know-who, they committed some of the most brutal Muggle massacres. What do you want to do? Arrest Hagrid, Mark glared at him. Malfoy said proudly, yes, I think we should end this idiot's teaching career. Shut up, bang. As soon as he finished speaking, Mark punched him away. Malfoy fell heavily to the ground and fainted instantly. Harry was shocked by the scene and stared blankly at Mark, who suddenly exploded. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 735, Jane becomes the female Thor. New York Cornell Presbyterian Hospital. Jane, who had just finished the examination, sat down in the hospital ward to rest. A young man sitting on the bed next to her was holding a book, Forster's Theory of Time Travel, in his hand and reading it carefully. Jane, who is a little proud in her heart, asked the other party with a smile on her face, is this book good? Yes, the young man said with his head down. I wrote it. Hearing Jane say that this book was written by her, the young man immediately raised his head in surprise. Is it really you? I mean, you are Dr. Jane Foster. Yes, this is written by me. I am Jane Foster. How about the Einstein-Rosen bridge? The young man put down the book and said to her excitedly, I have been reading it, but it is a little difficult to understand. Oh, you need a 3D model. Jane took the book and asked him, have you seen Torn Horizon? No. What about Interstellar? No. That's a pity. The movie Interstellar explains it very clearly. As she spoke, Jane tore off a page of the book and wrote the letters A and B on it, and said to the other party, the Einstein-Rosen bridge is easy to understand, folding space, so point A and point B exist in space and time. She folded the page of the book and used a pen to penetrate the folded points A and B at once. Seeing Jane's actions, the young man opened his mouth in surprise. You damaged your book? But now you understand wormholes? Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Dr. Foster. The young man happily high-fived Jane. Hey, Jane, I'm here. As the two were talking, Kate came with a large bag of food. Sorry, I saw the spicy tofu and I had to buy it. Putting a bag of snacks on the table, Kate looked at Jane, who was getting thinner and thinner. The two looked at each other for a few seconds. How are you doing recently, Jane? I'm fine. Well, your condition doesn't seem to be very good, Kate asked her. Besides me, have you told anyone else about your illness? Jane shook her head. Once others know that you are ill, they will start to act strangely and look at you differently. I hate this feeling. I don't need to bear this now. Anyway, it's not too serious. Kate frowned as she looked at her friend pretending to be fine. You are in stage 4, Jane, so how many stages are there in total? 4, oh, Jane shrugged. That's what we know. Maybe there will be more later. Kate didn't argue with her anymore. She looked up at the infusion bag hanging on the shelf and asked her, where were you planning to go? Is there anything more important than your chemotherapy? Kate looked at Jane's face and asked seriously, aren't you going to sneak away to the lab? Yes, I have a few ideas I want to try. Jane expressed her idea of doing an experiment. Kate waved her hand to reject her. No, don't come on. I know you want to work in the laboratory, otherwise you will disappoint the entire civilized world. But, Jane, you don't understand the message conveyed to you by the universe. I will translate it for you. That is, slow down, Jane. You need physical strength to fight cancer. Jane listened to her best friend's words and fell into silence. I will fight cancer in my own way. Then let me tell you, Jane, your own way does not mean staying alone in the laboratory. Maybe you should play another card, your Space Knight card. Jane shook her head. That's not a card. That's a card, tall, mysterious, and handsome to the point of being a scumbag. Hearing Kate's description, Jane was amused by her. I don't want to call him at this time, Peter. Maybe he has his own life, and I don't want to disturb him. Jane hesitated and said to her best friend, you are lying to yourself, Jane. Kate's expression became serious, because Peter told you that after you die, he will make you a Valkyrie and send you to Valhalla, and you will meet in Valhalla at that time. You are just waiting for your death quietly, and then go to Valhalla. You are like a fool. Don't be silly, Jane. This is just an illusory promise. We don't know what will happen after we die, whether we go to heaven or hell, or the soul may not exist at all. We can't decide what we can do after death. Jane's expression was a little complicated after Kate exposed her thoughts. Maybe waiting is the best result. After a while, she said to Kate faintly. Kate didn't continue to speak, but just sighed. Afternoon. Jane finally went to the laboratory alone. After handing the slide made of blood to Professor Eric, she waited for the test results in the laboratory. Soon the professor's voice came to her. I'm sorry, Jane, the test results are still the same. The chemotherapy seems to be limited in effect. I'm sorry, Jane, if you need help or want to talk, you can call me. After listening to the professor's voice call, Jane sat in the chair with lifeless eyes. The effect of chemotherapy is limited, and she doesn't have much time left. But soon she became relieved again. Death is terrible, but it is not a bad ending for herself. Hey, Jane, where are you? Kate's phone suddenly called again. Jane picked up the phone helplessly. I'm in the lab. Kate, what's the matter? Kate's excited voice came from the phone. It's Peter. Peter is here. In the hospital. Hurry up. Your disease is cured. You don't need to go to Valhalla. Peter. Jane, who heard the news, showed an incredible expression on her face, and her mind was in a trance for a moment. The scene of parting with Peter before appeared in her mind. Last time in the desert town, she took out a notebook with important research materials and gave it to Peter. I'm giving it to you. Just consider it as a gift for our acquaintance during this period of time. Peter took the notebook from her hand. Isn't it very important for your research? Is it okay for you to give it to me? Sometimes it is very important, but now I don't think it is very important. At that time, she looked at the professor and Kate who were waiting for her in the distance, and looked at the sunset. I mean, compared with your long life, no matter what I do in my short life, it may not be very important, but if this gift can leave something in your life, it will be very meaningful. Sitting on the chair in the laboratory, Jane recalled the past scene with a smile on her lips. Hospital. Jane entered her ward and saw Peter's familiar figure. Seeing Peter's face that had not changed much, she was stunned. Long time no see, Jane. Peter smiled at Jane. Jane recovered from her daze, slowly walked to Peter, took a deep breath, suppressed her excitement, and said with a slightly trembling voice, long time no see, you haven't changed at all, Peter. As she said that, she stretched out her hand and gently hugged Peter. Peter was slightly stunned for a moment, and stretched out his hand to hug Jane. Kate, who was standing next to him, wanted to cry when she saw this scene, but she held back in the end. She wiped her eyes with a tissue and saw the young man who had read Forster's theory of time travel in the ward looking at her and glared at him. After the two hugged for a while, Peter, Jane and Kate talked about their previous encounter. I remember that the cause of everything was the hammer. Jane sat on the bed and said to Peter happily. Yes, meow meow hammer. Peter summoned meow meow hammer and showed it to the two. Wow, it's still here with you? Kate's face was full of incredible expressions. Jane reached out to meow meow hammer with a lot of emotion. Holding Thor's hammer, Jane suddenly felt a strange power that was transmitted to her whole body. She was extremely surprised and suddenly found that she could lift this Thor's hammer. In an instant, the whole ward was filled with lightning arcs, and lightning began to linger on Jane's body surface, and a shocking atmosphere spread throughout the ward. The young man who was reading, looking at Jane who slowly raised Thor's hammer, opened his mouth and couldn't say anything. Kate looked at Jane in a daze. When Peter saw Jane raising Thor's hammer, a surprised expression appeared on his face. Although he knew that Jane became the female Thor in the original world line, he didn't expect that she would raise Thor's hammer now. Under Peter's gaze, Jane's whole temperament changed. Her figure became better, and her tired body became full of youthful vitality in an instant, and her body became taller. Moreover, her muscles were strong, and her appearance rose several levels. Her brown hair turned into long golden hair, and the whole person exuded a different charm. Oh, my God, Kate, who was watching this scene, whispered to herself in shock. She could never have thought that her friend would raise Thor's hammer and transform. Peter looked at Meowth's hammer with a surprised look. He guessed that Thor's hammer chose Jane because of her personality and quality. Peter remembered that in the development of the original world line, after Jane Foster became the female Thor, she immediately felt her mission. She fully released her power to save the people, never concealed her power, and did not discriminate against anyone. She only does the most right thing and will never cover up any evil. The most important point is that she really tries her best to help everyone, whether it is the affairs of the 9 realms, the affairs of the earth, or even the affairs of the universe. As long as Jane finds someone in need of help, she will do her best to help, and she has never even rested. During the time she became the female Thor, she was almost never seen putting down the hammer to rest. She was forced to put down the hammer many times, or was forced to put down the hammer and return to Earth to treat her cancer. It seems reasonable that Thor's hammer would recognize Jane. Because she deserves it. Chapter 736 Green Lantern and the Interstellar Battlefield. No, Jane. Although he was a little surprised to see Jane become the female Thor, Peter finally stopped her. Put down the hammer, Jane. It will only accelerate the spread of cancer cells in your body. Peter slowly stretched out his hand to Jane, motioning Jane to hand over the meteor hammer to him. Put it down first, and then pick it up when you recover. But, I feel it is calling me to complete my mission. Jane held the hammer and said to Peter with an incredible expression on her face. No, your mission now is to survive, and then complete the mission it has given you. Peter stretched out his hand to Jane with encouragement in his eyes. You believe me, right? Now, Jane, give me the hammer. I hesitantly, looking at Peter's encouraging and sincere eyes, Jane finally handed the hammer to Peter. After losing the hammer, Jane regained her previous appearance and state. With a thump, she felt tired and weak, and fell forward into Peter's arms. Holding the thin Jane, Peter shook his head and said to Kate, who had not yet reacted, Jane's condition is very serious now. I will take her to my world for treatment. He suspected that if Jane continued to stay in the Marvel world, she would be tormented by cancer sooner or later. After all, in the Marvel world, cancer has always been like a curse. Although the Marvel world has fantasy elements such as alien technology, super serum, magic and vibranium, cancer has always been incurable. May Parker, Spider-Man's aunt, died of cancer in the comics, and Peter Parker could not save his loved ones even with his extraordinary powers. Although the Asgardians are long-lived, they are not immortal. Odin's aging and Frigga's death, there is a disease plot in the comics, prove that gods also have the fragility of mortals. Wolverine's healing factor once temporarily suppressed cancer, but later it accelerated cancer due to genetic degeneration. Deadpool's face was disfigured and his body was covered with scars due to the rejection of his regenerative ability in cancer cells. Considering that cancer seems to be a curse for these superheroes, Peter decided to take Jane back to the DC world for treatment. With Bruce and the Wayne Group, plus the various black technologies at her disposal, it would not be too difficult to solve Jane's cancer problem. Well, okay, I think this is a good idea. Kate did not object because of her trust in Peter. On the contrary, she was genuinely happy that her friend was saved. Padwick Farm. Little Horace, Gwen, Boom and V fell into silence as they looked at Jane brought back by Peter. Gwen wanted to ask, how many female friends did Peter have in the parallel world? Could it be that there were women that Peter knew in her own world? It was hard to say, after all, she was so familiar with Peter now, and she was one of them. But she must not get caught up in it. Gwen began to think wildly. She now wanted to write a rock song to describe her wonderful adventures during this period, as well as Peter's charming baby physique. Jane has cancer, it's already in the late stage, I need to send her to Gotham for treatment. After instructing a few people, Peter took Jane to Gotham. Gotham, Wayne's Special Care Medical Center. Peter was talking to Jane in the ward. Sorry, Jane, I brought you to my world without permission, Peter apologized to her. No, I'm very happy. I woke up just now and thought I was in Valhalla. This is not bad. At least I can study the scientific and technological achievements of this world. This is the first time I have come to such a far place, Jane said to Peter with a good smile. Coming to Peter's world, being able to meet Peter often, and not having to die, there is no better ending than this. After you recover, you can pick up the hammer and do what you want, but before that, Jane, you need to take good care of your illness. He squatted down and held Jane's hand. Lady Thor, can you do it? Looking at Peter's serious expression, Jane's smile became more intense. Of course I can do it, and, Peter, don't treat me like a child. Peter wanted to say something else, but the phone rang. After picking up the phone and talking to Raven on the other side for a few words, Peter's expression became serious. Peter, is everything okay? Nothing. Mark and his friends had some problems at school. I'll go take care of it. If you have anything, call me or talk to Bruce directly. I'm leaving first. Jane, After giving Jane some instructions, Peter returned to the farm. Hogwarts, Dumbledore's office. Harry looked down at Mark. Mark, knowing that he had gotten into trouble, looked at Headmaster Dumbledore sitting behind his desk with some uneasiness. Professor McGonagall stood aside with a stern face, while Snape had a gloomy face. Duh. There were footsteps in the corridor, and Mark recognized them as his father's footsteps. With a creak, the door was pushed open, and Peter appeared outside. Professor Dumbledore. Peter stepped forward and shook hands with Dumbledore. After the two sides exchanged pleasantries, Dumbledore said to Peter, "Malfoy is now lying in Madame Pomfrey's infirmary, and has not woken up yet. I think his condition seems to be not very good." As Dumbledore was talking, Lucius Malfoy walked in aggressively. After seeing Peter's presence, his momentum stagnated, but he still said to Peter angrily, "Mr. Padraic, look at what your son has done. I think we'd better find out the cause and effect." Peter looked at Mark. "Mark, you can tell us what happened." Seeing Peter's eyes, it seemed that there was not much blame, and Mark finally let go of the heart that had been hanging. "Sorry, I didn't mean it. Malfoy said that he would end Hagrid's teaching career completely." Mark told Malfoy's previous behavior in detail. "I didn't want to do that, but I didn't control my emotions at the time. It was my fault." Mark apologized to Lucius Malfoy. "This is just your one-sided statement." Lucius's attitude softened a little after hearing the apology, but he still looked very unhappy. "I can prove it." Harry stood up and said. Lucius glared at him. "Mr. Potter, everyone knows that you two have a good relationship." He hated this nosy Harry Potter even more. "You are everywhere." Dumbledore stood up and said, "I think Mr. Malfoy, your accusation is not very reasonable." He glanced at Mark. "In addition, regarding Hagrid, I have received countless letters from parents. They went to school here and were deeply impressed by Hagrid. They told me very firmly that if I expelled Hagrid, they would never give up." Dumbledore's tone became serious. His eyes shot sternly from behind the half-moon lenses. "Since I became the headmaster of this school, at least one owl has sent a letter every week, criticizing the way I manage the school, saying what I should do and how I should handle school affairs. But I don't want the students in the school to judge teachers arbitrarily like those critics." While Dumbledore was talking, Madame Pomfrey told everyone that Malfoy had woken up and was fine. Hearing that Malfoy had woken up, Lucius glared at Harry and walked quickly to the infirmary. Seeing that Lucius seemed no longer prepared to pursue the matter, Professor McGonagall and Snape also left the headmaster's office. After the other party left, Mark raised his head. "Thank you, Professor Dumbledore." "Thank you, Dad. I'm so sorry." "Don't have too much psychological burden," Professor Dumbledore said to Mark. "Let me tell you a secret of mine. My brother Aberforth was prosecuted for abusing magic on a goat. This matter was reported everywhere in the newspapers, but Aberforth didn't hide at all, not at all. He held his head high and continued to do his own thing. Of course, I'm not sure he can read, so he may not be brave." He blinked at Mark and Harry. "So, newspapers and other things, the opinions of outsiders, sometimes we don't have to take them too seriously." After Dumbledore comforted the two, Peter took Harry and Mark out of the principal's office. On the way, Mark stopped and apologized to Peter guiltily. "Dad, I'm so sorry, I didn't control my impulse." "No, you controlled it, Mark, because if you really didn't control it, Malfoy would never survive." Peter patted his shoulder. "I believe that after this experience, Mark, you will grow faster and be able to control yourself better. In fact, the trivialities of daily life often make us excited, anxious, troubled, and enthusiastic. It is because it is in front of us that we feel how huge it is, and how important and severe it is." After a pause, he said to Mark and Harry, who was listening, "But once they disappear in the long river of time, they lose their own value. As long as we stop thinking about it, it will gradually disappear. It is so huge because it is very close to us." Next time, Mark, Harry, when you are irritated by this emotion, think about it in the long river of time. It is nothing, neither huge, nor important and severe. As long as you think about these, I think these bad emotions will be suppressed by you." Listening to Peter's narration, Mark nodded with emotion. "Thank you, Dad, I understand." After being encouraged by Peter, Mark felt that he was not afraid even if Corn affected him. His father's words always seemed to be very powerful, giving him encouragement and growth. "It's good that you understand." Peter patted Mark's shoulder and took the two away. On the way, Harry hesitated for a moment and asked Peter, "Sir, Did you design the second level of the Triwizard Tournament? Yes, Peter smiled. He had contacted Green Lantern Hal Jordan. As a member of the Green Lantern Corps, Hal traveled across the galaxy. Peter asked him to find a planet as an interstellar battlefield for these naughty kids. Chapter 737, Angry Goddess of Vengeance Hermione. The news that Mark had knocked Malfoy unconscious because of Hagrid soon spread throughout the school. Hermione soon learned about it. She, who considered herself a member of the Padraic family, decided to take some practical action. She had already invited Peter to be her dance partner, and Mark's matter was her own business. So an angry Hermione found Harry. The Three Broomsticks Tavern. The tavern was as crowded as usual. Harry walked to the bar and saw Hermione, who had invited him. Hermione had already bought 2 butterbeers. Harry, are you okay? I'm fine. Headmaster Dumbledore didn't criticize us too much? Mr. Padraic did give us a lesson on how to control your emotions. I think it was very useful. Harry sat down and asked Hermione, you look very angry. Hermione, of course, Mark's matter is my matter. Hermione said that she would not only deal with Malfoy, but also with Rita, the unscrupulous reporter. Seeing Hermione's indignant look, Harry wanted to ask, are you familiar with Mr. Padraic? Are you and Ron still not talking? Harry did not gossip about her and Peter, but changed the subject to ask about Hermione and Ron. After the Christmas ball, the two had not spoken again. No, we have nothing to talk about until he formally apologizes to me, Hermione said angrily. She was about to continue talking to Harry when an unexpected person walked in. Rita Skeeter walked into the bar from outside. She was wearing a yellow robe today, and her long nails were painted in a pink color that people did not like. She was followed by her bloated photographer. Rita Skeeter, holding a glass of wine in her hand, walked through the guests in the pub with the photographer and walked towards the table not far away. Harry and Hermione stared at her. She was talking to her assistant quickly and did not notice Hermione's gaze at all. He doesn't seem to be willing to talk to us, does he? Bozo, tell us why the situation has developed into this. What exactly is he doing? Are the large group of goblins following him? But why did he say he was sightseeing? Rita Skeeter talked to her assistant non-stop. It's all nonsense. He is a veteran liar and never tells the truth. Did something happen to him? Should we dig deeper? Ludo Bagman, former director of the Ministry of Magic Sports Department, has lost his reputation. This title is really powerful. Bozo, listen, we just need to write a suitable story. Do you want to ruin someone's life again? Harry heard Rita Skeeter's chattering and couldn't help but stand up and sneer at her. Several customers nearby heard the voice and turned their heads. Rita Skeeter was stunned for a moment and turned her eyes. She quickly saw who was talking, and her eyes behind the jeweled glasses widened instantly. Harry, great, it's you. Rita Skeeter saw that it was Harry. Her face was instantly full of smiles. Great. Why don't you come over and join me? Don't even think about it. I won't get close to you even if I ride a 20-foot-long broom. Harry interrupted her, glared at her and said, why did you report Hagrid like that? You completely ruined his life. Hearing Harry's accusation, Rita Skeeter raised her thick eyebrows. Because our readers have the right to know the truth. Harry, listen, I'm just doing my normal job. No one cares if he's a half-giant. Harry said to her angrily. Hagrid is a normal human being. Hearing Harry's angry words, the whole tavern suddenly became silent. Madame Rosmerta cast her eyes from behind the bar, put down her mead, and looked at Harry and Hermione in surprise. Rita Skeeter's eyebrows moved slightly. She immediately fixed her eyebrows again. Very good, Harry. She quickly opened her crocodile handbag, took out her notebook and said, Harry, would you like to tell me about what you know about Hagrid, the humanity of the giants behind the tendons? Or your incomprehensible friendship, or do you regard him as your father? Hearing her say this, Hermione stood up suddenly. She held the cup of butterbeer tightly in her hand, looking like she might throw the cup away at any time. Rita Skeeter, you are such a disgusting woman. Hermione glared at her with gritted teeth. You don't care about anything. You only care about one thing, that is, to come up with a gimmicky story. No matter who it is, you will not let it go. You have no professional ethics at all. You even don't let Ludo Bagman go? Sit down, you stupid girl who knows nothing. You'd better shut up about things you don't know. Don't talk nonsense, Rita Skeeter said coldly. Her eyes fell on Hermione, and she became extremely cold and fierce in an instant. I know about Ludo Bagman. If you hear me tell you his story, it will make your hair stand on end. She looked at Hermione's figure, and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "Why don't we talk about you, Miss Granger? You are the most outstanding girl at the Christmas ball. You invited Peter Padrick to be your dance partner, and you became Cinderella, which surprised everyone. But according to what I heard, Peter Padrick is your friend's father. You fell in love with your friend's father and invited him to be your dance partner, right? Don't deny it." The passionate look you gave Peter Padrick is not an ordinary idol. By doing this, Miss Granger, are you trying to snatch your father from Raven? She loves her father very much. Hearing that Rita Skeeter was getting more and more excessive, Hermione drew out her wand and was about to hide her. "Shut up." Guilty and annoyed, Hermione couldn't help but burst into anger and was about to release magic on the other party. No. Hermione, calm down." Harry hugged Hermione. "Calm down, you can't attack her, Hermione, or you'll be expelled from school." Harry tried his best to persuade Hermione to calm down. "Let's go." Harry pulled her hand. "Hurry up, Hermione, or we'll be in trouble." The angry Hermione was directly pulled out of the pub by Harry. After the two left, many people looked at them. When he walked to the door, Harry couldn't help but look back at the pub. Rita Skeeter's shorthand pen had been taken out, and she was writing back and forth on a piece of parchment on the table. "She's going to deal with you next, Hermione." When the two hurried to the street, Harry lowered his voice and said worriedly, "Let her try, and see if I care," Hermione said nonchalantly. She was so angry that she was shaking all over. "I'll teach her a lesson." "What did she say?" "She said I was a silly little girl and that I was dating my friend's father." "Humph, just wait. I'll make her pay the price. First for Mark, then for Hagrid, then for you, Harry, and finally for Mr. Peter. I advise you, Hermione, don't mess with Rita Skeeter," Harry said to her nervously. "Seriously, Hermione, she will dig up your past and write it as a slander against you. Don't worry, my parents don't read the Daily Prophet. They won't scare me into hiding," Hermione said as she walked forward, "and Hagrid won't hide anymore. He shouldn't be upset by this talk. Now that woman should report the scandal between me and Mr. Peter. I already know what she's going to write. I became Mr. Peter's rumored girlfriend." Hermione took big steps and walked forward quickly. Harry had to work hard to catch up with her. The last time he saw Hermione so angry was when she slapped Draco Malfoy. Hermione, who was walking in front and was snorting, had already decided. At night, she would disguise herself and cast a spell on this woman behind her back to make her ugly. At this time, Peter didn't know that his scandal with Hermione would spread in the wizarding world, and Hermione was preparing to attack Rita Skeeter at night and cause a big mess. Now he was rushing to the coastal city with little Horace and Azu. "Emperor Dad, what kind of superhero is Green Lantern?" little Horace asked curiously. "Green Lantern is Hal Jordan, an upright pilot who became a superhero by wearing a Green Lantern ring. He is responsible for guarding the safety of the 2814 sector of the universe," Peter explained to him. "Where is the 2814 sector of the universe?" Peter continued to reply. "One of the areas designated by the Guardians of the Universe. The Earth is located here." Zoo imitated Peter's rubbing his chin and asked Peter, "Dad, do you think I can wear the Green Lantern ring?" "Peter, you are really asking for trouble by asking your dad this question." "No, you can't." "Why?" Zoo was not convinced. "You said Jane just lifted Thor's hammer yesterday." "She is just a scientist who knows nothing. She can lift Thor's hammer. Why can't I even wear a mere ring? Am I not one of the greatest superheroes in the world, Dad?" Zoo asked Peter after exhaling a breath. "You can borrow Hal Jordan's Green Lantern ring and see if you can wear it," Peter said, and the three of them soon arrived at their destination. A bank on the central avenue of Seaside City was experiencing a robbery. However, several armed robbers were stopped by the Green Lantern, who arrived in time. "I'm sorry, I'm late, but it's not too late. The robbers haven't escaped yet." Hal, floating in the air, smiled at the frightened crowd. Chapter 738 "I am the deputy commander in the Milky Way, and you are the commander, Dad." Green Lantern, Hal was talking to everyone in the bank when he suddenly heard a voice behind him. Turning around, he was surprised to see Peter standing in front of him, and Azu and little Horace standing on both sides of Peter. "Peter Padrick." Hal Jordan's face was full of disbelief. "It seems that we are not strangers yet." Peter smiled at him. "Of course, I have communicated with Batman before, and I remember the Flashpoint incident that changed the whole world very clearly. I mean, I also dreamed about the scenes after the world was changed. I have heard a lot about your story, Mr. Padrick." Hal walked to Peter and held out his hand to him. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Patrick. Welcome to Seaside City." Peter reached out and shook his hand. "Thank you. Do you know Batman?" "Yes, at first I thought he was a vampire, or some other vampire-like creature in an urban legend. You know, he appears at night and disappears, and he has superpowers." Before he could finish, little Horace interrupted. "No, Batman doesn't have superpowers. He's just an ordinary person wearing a bat costume." "What?" Hal was struck by lightning when he heard the news. "Are you telling the truth?" "He's just an ordinary person." Looking at the shocked expression on this guy's face, Peter was sure that the other person's brain might not be very active. Coughing, Peter put the thing in his hand in front of his eyes to observe. "This ring, is it driven by willpower?" Peter looked at the Green Lantern ring in his hand and asked Hal. Seeing his Green Lantern ring suddenly appear in Peter's hand, Hal Jordan was stunned. Then he looked at himself and found that after losing the Green Lantern ring, his Green Lantern uniform also disappeared, replaced by the flight jacket he usually wears. "How is this possible? How did you do it?" His Green Lantern ring was suddenly in Peter's hand without anyone noticing. If the other party was his enemy, wouldn't he be finished? Peter put down the hand holding the Green Lantern ring and said to Hal, who was a little bit unbelievable, "You were not paying attention just now." Hal, who was a little angry and felt embarrassed, immediately stretched out his hand. Whoosh! The Green Lantern ring flew back to Hal's hand, and the Green Lantern uniform reappeared on his body. "Don't do that again." Peter shook his head and said to Hal, "Unless I want to." Hal, holding his fist, wanted to punch Peter's smiling face. But before he could swing his fist, Zeus stood in front of him. "Hey, I advise you to keep your calm," Zeus said to him unceremoniously with his hands folded in front of his chest. "Aha, are you threatening me? You can think so. I have dealt with your equivalent in the parallel world." Azu said that he had dealt with the equivalent of Green Lantern in the world of injustice. "My equivalent is not me." Hal looked at Azu unhappily, ready to give this guy who looked a bit annoying a blow at any time. Hal Jordan. Just when Hal and Azu were on the verge of a fight, a voice suddenly sounded behind him. Hal heard the voice and looked in the direction of the voice. A projection of an old man with blue skin suddenly appeared in the air. "Guardian." Hal Jordan looked at the old man in surprise. "The Guardians need you, Hal Jordan. Is it a serious incident?" Hal frowned and asked the other party. "Yes, go to Trauma in Sector 1552 to meet up with other Green Lanterns," the Guardian said to Hal. "After arriving, you will get more information. Don't delay." Hal nodded. "I get it." After the Guardian issued the order, he looked at Peter and turned off the long-distance communication. "It seems that I have to work overtime today." "Excuse me." Hal waved to Peter and prepared to leave. "Wait." Peter stopped Hal, who was about to leave. "Hal, you shouldn't mind. Let's go with you to the 1552 sector of Trauma Planet to have a look." "You mean, you want to act with me?" "Yes, maybe we can help," Peter said to him with a smile. Hal wanted to refuse immediately, but considering Peter's good fighting ability, and whether he would cause more trouble if he refused, he finally agreed after hesitating for a while. "Okay, Mr. Patrick, but I must make it clear in advance that I am not responsible for any problems that arise in outer space, although I will try my best to ensure your safety." "Of course." Peter nodded, indicating that the other party did not need to worry about the situation on his side. While following the Green Lantern to Sector 1552, little Horace asked Peter, "Emperor Dad, what does Green Lantern do?" Peter organized his words and explained to him, the title of Green Lantern does not belong to a specific hero, but is used to refer to an entire huge army. Green Lanterns rely on their fearless will and rings with special energy to form the Green Lantern Corps, and jointly shoulder the responsibility of peacekeeping the entire universe. The system is equivalent to the peacekeeping force in the real world. What is the use of the Green Lantern ring? Just now, Emperor Dad, you took off his ring directly. Does it mean that you can also wear a Green Lantern ring? Little Horace was shocked by Peter's performance just now. He didn't expect that his father could actually take off the other's ring directly. It's a long story. The basic ability of the Green Lantern is to materialize creation through the wearer's imagination and willpower. The Green Lantern ring is called the most powerful weapon in the universe. The stronger the Green Lantern's willpower, the greater the effectiveness of the ring. The limit of the Green Lantern energy is unknown. The limit is the Green Lantern and the ring. As for whether I am qualified to wear the Green Lantern ring, I don't know, and I don't care, because Dad doesn't need the power of this ring. Why? Emperor Dad, because wearing a Green Lantern ring means obeying the Guardian's Green Lantern Corps. In addition, the Green Lantern Corps has gained too much power to protect the galaxy. This power can easily be used by people with ulterior motives, thus causing potential threats and risks. So, Dad doesn't need this power. Listening to Peter's explanation, little Horace nodded secretly. If he formed a galactic corps in the future, the first thing he had to do was to eliminate this group of so-called Guardians and Green Lantern Corps members. At least the Milky Way couldn't let them have the final say. At that time, the so-called Guardians and the Green Lantern Corps will be cleared out, and they will be the deputy commander in the Milky Way, and let the Emperor Father be the commander. When several people arrived at Telema, a huge planet with red rock on the surface appeared in front of everyone. At this time, several other Green Lanterns of the Green Lantern Corps were already waiting here. At first glance, the Green Lantern in the shape of a birdman impressed Peter the most. Peter remembered that this birdman was called Talmer, from Zutter, which is located in Sector 2813. The residents here are all in the image of human bodies and bird heads, and are good at diplomacy. Talmer is a very senior member of the Green Lantern Corps, with a glorious experience and many battles. He is a member of the Green Lantern Guard of Honor, and is also responsible for some training work. For example, Aretha has received his training. Among the other Green Lantern members, there is a big guy who looks like a stone man. Peter remembers that his name is Kilowog, the Green Lantern of Sector 674. He was originally a scientist. After being recruited by the Guardians, he received training to become a Green Lantern. Wow, what an elite team! Hal dropped from the sky, looked at several Green Lanterns, and said, "It seems that this mission is not easy. The Guardians actually sent you here, but fortunately I also brought helpers," Hal said as he walked towards several Green Lanterns. Kilowog noticed Peter, Azu and Horace, and asked Hal in confusion, "Who are they?" "Hal, why did you bring them here? They are my friends. This is Peter Patrick, the captain of the Justice League of Patrick Farm. These two are his sons, John Patrick and Horace Patrick." Hal introduced Peter and the other two in a joking tone. "They are all beings with superpowers. They once repelled Steppenwolf and Kryptonian General Zod." He then pointed at the Stone Man and the Birdman and introduced them to Peter. "These are Kilowog and Talmer." Hal then pointed to a young woman with red skin and curly black hair and said to Peter, "This is Katma Tui. She's from Karuga. The residents here have a reddish-brown appearance. Karuga has always been ruled and enslaved by the corrupt Yellow Lantern, Sinestro. Long before the Green Lantern Guardian discovered this and decided to take action, Katma was already the leader of the local resistance forces. When Peter heard that the other party was Sinestro's fellow villager, he nodded and looked at her again. Hal then turned his attention to the green-skinned man next to him. "This is the Green Man." Hal introduced the last Green Lantern with an octopus head. "This is Sarek. He has always been the Lantern of OA, responsible for the dispatch of the Corps." After introducing the 5 Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan said to them, "So what happened that required you 5 elite members to carry out this mission?" Tomar glanced at Peter, unsure if Peter was worthy of his trust. "Don't worry, Mr. Patrick has saved the Earth more than once. He is completely trustworthy." Although Hal was very dissatisfied with Peter for taking his Green Lantern ring at the beginning, he still honestly told Peter what he had done. Chapter 739 Let Harry transform into a space warrior and fight the aliens. "Well, things are a bit complicated," Kilowog said to Hal with a serious expression. "A Green Lantern is dead. The Guardian told me about the situation in this sector before leaving. The Green Lantern in this sector is dead and may have died in the border area," he said with some sadness. "He is a very good person. I have met him several times before." Hal asked Kilowog puzzledly, "Didn't he give the ring to others?" "Doesn't anyone know why?" Kilowog shook his head. "The Guardians don't know much. They think he was attacked by a creature we have never seen before." Hal thought for a while and said, "I guess it must be a group of invaders who killed him, and then the Guardians sent the 6 of us to solve the matter." Tomer stood up and said to Hal, "I don't think it was an invader, but more like a rapidly reproducing bug. We don't know much about them at present, but as far as I know, everyone who has been in contact with them is dead. The data shows that they live in a remote place on the planet and have not yet threatened the survival of local residents. We must ensure that they will never harm nearby residents." Hearing what Tomor said, Hal rubbed his chin and whispered, "I hope it's as simple as it sounds." After hearing what they said, Peter fell silent. Bugs. After arriving at the destination, Hal and Peter and others looked for the dead Green Lantern and searched for the signal of the Green Lantern ring along the way. The signal of the Green Lantern ring is getting stronger. After entering a dark and winding cave, Hal used the Green Lantern ring to illuminate the way forward in the area and shouted to the people behind him, "He must be nearby. Stay alert." Katma Tui, the Green Lantern walking at the back, stared at Peter and his two sons in front, and said to his companion Tomar, "I can feel the aura emanating from that man. He is definitely a powerful being. I even doubt whether I am his opponent." Tomar nodded. Hal Jordan said that he defeated Steppenwolf and Kryptonians. A guy who can possess such power is definitely not a simple person. In short, we have to be careful of him. As everyone went deeper and deeper into the cave, the interior became deeper and darker. The Green Man put his hand on the cave wall and said to everyone, "I have never seen this kind of cave structure. It is definitely not formed naturally, but it is indeed iron ore." The surrounding cave walls were carved with complex patterns, which made the Green Man feel very strange. Peter walked in front with Horus and Azu. After little Horus entered a space, he shouted to Peter, "Emperor Dad, look here." After hearing the voice, Peter and Azu immediately rushed over. On the ground, there were many hard-shelled eggs, which looked like insect eggs. Peter walked to the hard-shelled eggs and observed them. He stood up and said to the Green Lanterns who came over with astonishment, "Obviously, this is the way that creatures reproduce." Hal's mood also became nervous. "In short, we have to explore this cave quickly. The distress signal of the ring said that they will threaten everyone here." After discovering that it might be the way this creature reproduces, the Green Lanterns with different moods continued to explore forward. Soon Hal found the body of the dead Green Lantern. Hal Jordan's Green Lantern ring cast a pale green halo on the cave wall. A skeleton covered in a green uniform was embedded in the calcification layer in a twisted posture. "Oh my god!" Tomar said in shock. Katma Tui used energy to visualize a geological hammer to knock open the transparent gelatinous substance covering the surface of the corpse. A Green Lantern ring covered with the mucus rolled out of the broken sternum. The energy residue shows that he was suddenly attacked. Kilowog's ring scanned the broken uniform fragments. "I can't believe that the warrior who has experienced many battles was." The next second, his voice suddenly got stuck in his throat. Because he heard the sound of nails scratching rocks from deep in the cave, like cutting rocks with a rusty saw. Hal Jordan's visual searchlight beam pierced the darkness and instantly illuminated the entire cave ceiling. Countless olive-shaped egg sacs were seen hanging upside down between stalactites. The mucus network covering the surface rose and fell like breathing. Just when everyone was shocked by the scene, a crack sounded. An egg sac suddenly cracked, and the amniotic fluid-like liquid fell with a black shadow. At the critical moment, Hal immediately used the lantern ring to create a shield to protect everyone present. The green energy shield was emitting green smoke amid the hissing sound of acid splashing. "Back off," Hal shouted as he backed away. His ring burst into dazzling light, and at the same time, the creature that jumped out of the liquid was approaching them. In a flash of light, he saw the whole picture of the thing, a 3-meter-long streamlined body covered with an obsidian-like exoskeleton, with vertebrae protruding like saw teeth, and bifurcated bone spurs at the end of the tail vertebrae dripping with liquid. The most terrifying thing was its head. There were no eyes, only a smooth curved surface extending out an arc-shaped mouthpart, and the inner layer was densely covered with sharp teeth. Peter was also completely shocked when he saw this scene. Why does this thing look so much like an alien? Although there is a slight difference in size, the appearance is 70% similar to the alien. Just as the Green Lanterns were in shock, 34 aliens were ejected from the top of the cave. The violent sound of bang bang rang out around. Katma Tui's Gatling energy cannon was corroded by acid as soon as it took shape. The chains thrown out by Tomar tied up 2 aliens, but they used their tail stingers to cut each other and break free. "Be careful. These ugly monsters know how to coordinate tactics," Tomar shouted to the crowd, but his warning was quickly drowned out by the explosion. Everyone retreated for the time being, and Hal's flamethrower ignited the incoming group of aliens. The charred body twitched in the flames, but more black shadows emerged from the cracks in the rock. The next second, Hal suddenly found that the ground was shaking. The rock under their feet was actually a dried mucus layer. At this time, the rock layer was cracking with countless holes, and hundreds of alien-like creatures flapped their wings and flew into the air, and the friction of the wing membranes was like sandpaper. "Be careful. They're already flying over," Hal shouted to everyone. Then he quickly flew into the air, his flight path drawing a green arc in the air. Hal materialized a rotating chainsaw weapon, shredding the 3 flying aliens into pieces, but the acid blood corroded the energy structure, and the chainsaw instantly became dim. Boom. 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 The missiles materialized by the Green Man exploded at the top of the cave, making a deafening sound. The falling rocks fell clattering and temporarily blocked the monster's ground offensive. Katma Tui, who thought he was saved, had no time to catch his breath, but suddenly felt a chill on his back, as if something appeared behind him. The next second, something beyond visual perception attacked from the shadows. Katma Tui's ring automatically materialized a mirror shield. The creature reflected in the mirror made the blood of the Green Lantern's present coagulate. It was a larger alien-like creature. The secondary limbs were thick, and the sharp teeth exposed when the mouth was open were dripping with sticky liquid. Be careful. Katma, just as Hal opened his mouth to warn, another larger alien rushed out. At the critical moment, Peter, who had been paddling, finally took action. He released a beam of divine energy from his right hand, and instantly knocked the 2 larger aliens away. Amid the sound of boom, the dazzling silver-white light illuminated the entire cave. The 2 creatures hit by the divine energy hit the wall and wailed. This alien creature seemed to have absorbed some kind of substance. Not only was its strength and speed amazing, but even its physical resistance was stronger than the heterogeneous creatures Peter knew. Ordinary alien creatures would definitely be crushed into dust by the divine energy in an instant. Peter's eyes became more serious, and his right hand increased the power of the divine energy released. As the divine energy spread forward, all the alien creatures affected wailed and fled into the cave. The silver energy like a tide drove back all the chasing creatures. Katma Tui was stunned when he saw Peter releasing the energy of the gods. Little Horace was holding a bolter and was aiming at the monster. When he saw the Emperor's move, his mouth widened slightly. Azu stood beside Peter, looking as if he was used to it. He suspected that if the red-skinned woman was not in danger, his father would never take action. After all, his father, who was used to slacking off, would only take action when he saw a beautiful woman in danger. Otherwise, his father would not have found so many reserved stepmothers for him. Peter, under the explosion of Peter's energy of the gods, Hal and other Green Lanterns left the cave. What is that? After coming out, Katma Tui asked Hal in shock. I don't know. They are deadly, but not highly intelligent creatures. Maybe it's just their instinct. Hal shook his head and said, this is a perfect killing machine. They are good at killing but not evil. Maybe we shouldn't kill them. After all, we are here to be protectors, not killers. Peter was speechless after hearing what Hal said. This guy is really a saint. But it was just right. This planet could be used as the second stage of the Tree Wizard tournament, and Raven, Harry, Fleur and the others could wear power armor and destroy these alien-like creatures. Peter stroked his chin and fell into deep thought. Should Raven and the others be given some helpers, such as some Astartes warriors? After all, there were quite a lot of these creatures, and he was afraid that Harry and the others would be overwhelmed by them once the battle started. Thank you for your help, Mr. Padraic, Peter was thinking, and the Green Lantern Katma Tui came over to thank him. Chapter 740, Horace chosen by the Green Lantern ring? You're welcome. Peter glanced at this fellow from the Senex. I think you should be able to deal with these alien creatures even if I don't do anything. Anyway, you saved me, and I express my highest gratitude to you, Mr. Padraic. Katma Tui took a deep breath, put her hands on her chest, and bowed slightly to Peter. She raised her head and wanted to say something else when Hal came over. Katma Tui had no choice but to nod slightly to Peter and leave. Horace, standing in an unnoticed corner, stared at the monster's nest that had collapsed for the most part, lowered his head to look at his clenched fist, and his expression became a little complicated. Peter had just returned to Padraic's farm with little Horace and Azu when he heard the news that Hermione attacked reporter Rita Skeeter. At dinner. It's very cold in the Black Lake. It's January now. I think Rita Skeeter is very cold. Raven sat next to Peter and said gloatingly. So it was Hermione who pushed Rita Skeeter in? Peter asked her with a frown. Yes, Hermione used the invisibility charm to follow Rita Skeeter, and then cast a spell on her when she left the 3 broomsticks. Rita Skeeter wanted to avoid it, but accidentally fell into the lake. Raven said to Peter, Dad, you have to know that there are said to be giant squids in the Black Lake. Rita Skeeter was not eaten by the squid. I think she was lucky enough. Then what happened? Gwen asked curiously about what happened next. Her attack on Rita Skeeter felt quite cool. If a reporter spread rumors about her, she would definitely fight back. At least she would make that person pay the price. Mark heard Gwen asking about what happened next, and said with a strange expression, "Then, Professor Snape happened to pass by and quarter, Peter." He didn't know whether to say Hermione was lucky or unlucky. Loki was eating a Chinese burrito, and coughed beside him. He looked up and said to everyone, but fortunately, Hermione didn't use the Avada Kedavra, the Imperius, or the Cruciatus curse. If she used the unforgivable curse, she would not only be imprisoned, but she would be in prison in Azkaban for the rest of her life. Stroking his beard, Peter looked at Loki, who was making sarcastic remarks. He planned to go to Hogwarts tomorrow to see how Hermione was doing. But before that, he felt that he had to deal with this Loki who was making sarcastic remarks. "Loki, you invited Zhang Chu to the Christmas ball. What's the matter?" Peter asked Loki about his partner for the Christmas ball. Hearing Peter asking about Zhang Chu, Loki's expression was calm. He had known that Peter would ask him this question. After all, his father liked to dig up old things, and Loki had already experienced this. After coughing, he said to Peter, "It's nothing, Dad. She is close to Cedric. We are just ordinary friends. You should be more worried about Mark than Zankile and me. He and Ginny are obviously more like lovers than us." Soon Loki turned the war to Mark. Mark blushed. "We are just ordinary friends. Ginny is Ron's sister. We are certainly not lovers, and I am not an adult. This has nothing to do with friends, sisters, or whether you are adults or not. Mark, I don't think Daddy objects to you and Ginny. We are not a family that values pure blood like the Malfoys." Loki continued to stimulate Mark and glanced at Tom. "Are you right, Tom?" Tom was concentrating on the food. Hearing Loki's words, he looked up. "I think you are a bit chattering. If I were you, Loki, I would shut up." Raven looked at the quarreling people and shouted, a little irritated, "Hey, can you be quiet for a while?" Wanda and Quicksilver, who were sitting at the side of the dining table, looked at the quarreling people and were slightly stunned. Weren't they talking about Hermione attacking Rita Skeeter and being arrested and put in detention, and even threatened with expulsion? Why did they quarrel suddenly? Wanda looked at Zoo, Clark, Persephone, Star-Lord, Boom and V, and found that they continued to eat and drink, with their ears perked up like a spectator. She looked at Peter with a sullen face, and suddenly felt a little sympathy for him. It seems that having too many children is not a good thing. It is better to go to the farm in Marvel World with me. By then, there will be only me, Peter and Quicksilver on the farm. It would be best if there were 2 twin boys. Shaking her head vigorously, Wanda threw the unrealistic idea out of her mind. No, I can't think like that. It's a false and useless fantasy. I have to burn the Darkhold when I go back, otherwise it will always affect me and make me think about some fanciful things. Wanda looked at Peter a little embarrassedly, and then glared at Quicksilver, who was eating and drinking. "Can you be more elegant? This is not at home. Pay attention to your performance, Quicksilver, you are so weird." Late at night, Horace was lying on the bed. After fighting with the alien monsters during the day, Horace was a little tired. But now he was a little excited. Sitting up from the bed, Horace took out a green ring. The Green Lantern ring of the Green Lantern, who died in the alien monster's lair, was now in his hand. In the melee, this Green Lantern ring that seemed to have been attracting him was held in his hand and brought back to Earth. The Green Lantern ring that had been held in his hand seemed to have actively concealed its breath, so that other Green Lanterns did not find it. According to Emperor Dad, the stronger the user's willpower, the greater the effectiveness of the ring. The limit of the ability that the Green Lantern ring can exert is unknown, and it has been called the most powerful weapon in the universe by the outside world more than once. Staring at the ring in his hand, little Horace fell into deep thought. Is his willpower strong? Why does this Green Lantern ring seem to want to become a Green Lantern himself? No. Like his father, he will conquer the entire galaxy without relying on the power of the Green Lantern ring. This thing is like the corruption of the evil god in the warp to him. As long as he accepts the corruption of the evil god, he may be gradually corroded mentally, and may even betray the Emperor Father. At this time, Horace's memory of the Primarch began to awaken gradually. He has already vaguely realized that he may not be an ordinary human, nor may he be the biological son of the Emperor Father of the farm. Horace realized that his body was made of psychic power, not pure matter. And his body's strength is amazing. The strength of the Primarch, the baby pod of Manus, one of the Primarchs, once crashed into the layers of mountains on the planet and shook the entire planet. The baby pod withstood this violent impact, and Manus, As an infant, broke out of the pod with only his own brute force, he is the Primarch created by the Emperor of the Warhammer world. In another world. As the Emperor's father? Horus shook his head with mixed feelings. He will not go back and choose that Emperor father. Now he is under the command of the Emperor father named Peter Patrick. Closing his eyes, Horus recalled a memory. It seemed to be his own memory, or it seemed to be a memory that the Emperor had allowed him to see. He saw a commander, leading the way, breaking into a tall hall outside the ambush circle. The commander, dressed in power armor, seemed to be the commander of the Primarch, and his anger rekindled the fighting spirit of his squad. The commander rushed into the church, firing at every twisted silhouette that tried to stop him. All around him were enemies equipped with cloaking devices. A strange force tore the grenade launcher from his hand, so he reached to his waist and pulled out the chainsword. When the switch was turned on, it hummed and roared happily. The commander swept through the blurry figures surrounding him. From nowhere, a scream came, and a wound appeared in midair, and blood sprayed on the armor of the wall. "Kill them!" the commander shouted loudly, swinging his arms with all his strength. Servos and bionic polymers formed artificial muscles between his skin and armor plates, and suddenly swelled. The guy whose position was destroyed stumbled and struggled to escape the battle, holding his internal organs with both hands and trying in vain to stuff them back. The invisible force field attacked the commander, who seemed to be the Primarch again, tearing the edge of his left shoulder guard and almost knocking him down. He turned around and swung his chainsword, and the blade hit something, and metal fragments flew everywhere. A human silhouette left its original position, as if it was cut out of space. But soon the gap was filled. The electromagnetic force field of the invisible enemy emitted crackling sparks, revealing his figure. Then the invisible enemy, wielding a long-bladed spear, rushed towards the commander. The commander lowered his body with a chainsword in his hand and swept the spear out of the man's bright silver guard. At the same time, he rushed forward, shouldered the enemy and slammed him into the wall. The attack was so fast and fierce that even the ancient murals on the wall fell off layer by layer. The protagonist in Horus's sight stood up and gasped. The invisible enemy who attacked him had his lungs and chest almost crushed. He uttered a suffocating gurgling sound, then fell to his knees with his head drooped. Pulling his sight away, Horus gasped slightly. These revived memories and scenes of battle began to awaken in his mind. Horus didn't know who this commander he saw was, but he could learn his combat techniques and the art of commanding soldiers. Putting down the Green Lantern ring, Horus took a deep breath. I don't need this. With these memories of the Primarch, I can become the deputy commander of the galaxy. I will definitely eliminate the Guardians and the Green Lantern Corps, and let my father the Emperor take this position. Chapter 741, Sir Patrick and Dumbledore are both remarkable people. Hogwarts. Detention Room. The detention room is made of solid black magic stone. This special stone can resist most magic and physical attacks. The environment in the detention room is very simple. A toilet, a table, a chair, and a wooden bed are almost everything. There is also a thin blanket on the bed, but it looks very old. Hermione sat on the bed, hugged her legs and observed the surrounding environment. The magic lighting materials on the wall were emitting a faint light. I wonder if the school will expel me, Hermione muttered a little melancholy. Although she was a little worried, she had no regrets about dealing with Rita, the unscrupulous reporter. After all, Mark's business is her business, and Mr. Peter has become her dance partner. Do you want to escape from prison? Hermione couldn't help but think wildly. Forget it, she doesn't have that much ability. Besides, if she really escapes from prison, she's afraid she will be caught in Azkaban. Just as Hermione was wondering how the school would deal with her, the door was opened with a creak. A figure appeared at the door. Hermione adjusted to the light and recognized Peter. I didn't expect, Miss Granger, that you would be so brave to cast the Tarantella dance and the burning flame on Rita Skeeter and shoot her into the cold lake, Mr. Padraic. Hermione heard Peter's voice and walked quickly to Peter excitedly. Well done, Hermione. Hearing Peter's praise that didn't seem to be sarcastic, Hermione finally let go of the worry that had been hanging in her heart. She was still worried that Peter would blame her. I just want her to be punished. After all, she not only hurt Raven, Hagrid, Mark, and many others, but her falling into the lake was actually an accident, Hermione said a little embarrassedly. You did a good job, Hermione, but next time, you'd better stay away from Snape and other teachers in the school. Peter smiled at Hermione and said, Okay, let's go. Your detention is over, Detention is over." Hearing that her detention was over, Hermione looked at him in surprise. "Really? Mr. Peter?" Peter nodded. "It should be no problem. I talked to Dumbledore personally, and talked to Minister of Magic Fudge. He said that Rita Skeeter has withdrawn the charges against you." Hearing Peter say this, Hermione was a little moved. She knew that this must be Peter using his connections to help her solve it. Thank you, Mr. Peter. There's no need to be so polite about the relationship between us." Peter patted Hermione on the shoulder and said to her with a smile. When Hermione heard Peter say the relationship between us, she couldn't help but think about it again. The relationship between us? What kind of relationship is that? Outside the Hogwarts castle, Harry, Ron and Mark, the three of them were gathered in the corridor, discussing how to rescue Hermione. Unexpectedly, the three saw Hermione, who was talking to Peter happily and walking out of the castle. Since the three were at the corner of the corridor, they were not discovered by Peter and Hermione. As the two got closer, the three even heard Hermione's chattering. Although the teachers assigned a lot of homework to the 4th grade students during the holidays, Harry had no intention of doing his homework at all. In the week before Christmas, he was still playing with everyone. Harry heard Hermione telling Peter about her embarrassing story, and his expression was a little depressed. "You really tell everything to Mr. Peter. Aren't we three little ones? Why did Hermione betray our trio? The people in Gryffindor Tower are almost the same as before the holidays, and the tower seems to have shrunk because the people living in it are much noisier than usual. Fred and George's canary biscuits are selling well. In the first 1 or 2 days of the holiday, people suddenly grow feathers all over their bodies." Hermione continued to chatter. But soon the Gryffindor students learned their lesson and became very wary of the food handed over by others, in case there was a canary biscuit hidden in it. Also, George told Harry very confidently that he and Fred were developing another new product. "Harry told us that we must never accept anything from Fred and George in the future, even a potato chip. He has not forgotten the Dursleys and the fat tongue toffee." Hearing Hermione's words, Harry, Ron and Mark looked at each other speechlessly. Ahem. Dad and Hermione seemed to be preparing to go to the Forbidden Forest. "Should we go and see?" Mark said with a feeling of something strange. Why does it feel a little strange that Hermione is with her father now? Could Hermione really become his stepmother? Then how should he call Hermione? Auntie? Thinking of meeting her, he respectfully called Hermione, Aunt Granger. This picture is too beautiful, and he can't imagine it anymore. No, Ron said angrily, since Hermione is fine, why should we participate? He was discussing with Harry and Mark about rescuing Hermione before. Now that Hermione came out of the detention room safely and was talking to Peter so intimately, he suddenly felt bad. Seeing Ron's expression, Harry and Mark looked at each other. It seemed that the relationship between the two had become worse. Peter, who left Hogwarts, went to visit Hagrid in the Forbidden Forest with Hermione at her suggestion. According to Hermione, Hagrid's condition was a bit bad recently. On the way, Hermione talked about her preparations for the ball. "It's like this, when Harry and Malfoy were fighting, I was accidentally enchanted to find Madame Pomfrey. She shrank those enchanted fangs and held a mirror to me, tell her to stop when the teeth return to their previous normal state," Hermione said to Peter. "I let her do it a little too much." She smiled even more happily. "Mom and Dad won't be happy. For many years, they have been persuading me to reduce my teeth, but they hope that I will stick to wearing the wire braces for orthodontic treatment. You know, they are all dentists and think that teeth and magic are different." Peter listened to Hermione and nodded. Magic is indeed more effective than wire braces. Excited and happy, Hermione ran as fast as she could after entering the Forbidden Forest, all the way to Hagrid's hut. Passing through the gate and running across the grounds, Hermione soon arrived at Hagrid's hut. The curtains were drawn tightly, and when Peter approached, he could hear the sound of teeth coming from inside. "Hagrid," Hermione shouted, but no sound came out from inside. After looking at Peter, Hermione became angry. Knocking on his door, Hermione shouted inside, "Hagrid, that's enough, I know you're in there, no one cares that your mother is a giant. Hagrid, Rita Skeeter, that annoying woman, I've taught her a lesson for you. Hagrid, come out quickly, Mr. Peter is here to see you." Just as Hermione knocked on the door, it creaked open. Hermione was about to say "you should have been here earlier," but she quickly stopped abruptly. Because she found that the person standing opposite was not Hagrid, but Headmaster Dumbledore. "Good afternoon, Miss Granger," Dumbledore said happily, looking down at Hermione with a smile. Good afternoon, Professor Dumbledore. Mr. Peter and I want to see Hagrid, Hermione said in a low voice, lowering her head. Well, I guessed it. Dumbledore glanced at Peter standing outside the door, with a humorous light in his eyes. Why don't you come in? Miss Granger, Mr. Pedraic. Okay. Hermione entered the room with a blushing face. As soon as she entered the room, Fang suddenly rushed towards her, jumped beside Hermione, and tried to lick her hand. Hermione avoided Fang and looked around. Hagrid was sitting at the table with 2 large teacups in front of him. He looked a little miserable. His face was not very clean, his eyes were red and swollen, and his hair was messy. After Peter entered the room, he greeted Dumbledore and Hagrid. Have some tea. Dumbledore took out his wand and fiddled with it gently. A rotating teacup and cake appeared in the air. After making the teacup fall on the table, Dumbledore asked the silent Hagrid, Hagrid, did you hear what Miss Granger said just now? I don't know. Hagrid lowered his head and said nothing, tears flowing out and seeping into his beard. Dumbledore sighed and said to him, you don't have to care about what others think, Hagrid, and what the reporters write. You are still very popular here. Many students like you as a teacher. They told me that they hope you stay. Not everyone, Hagrid said sadly. Not everyone supports me to stay. Dumbledore looked at him. If you want to wait for the support of the whole world, I'm afraid you will stay in this cottage forever. I agree with what Principal Dumbledore said. Peter put down his teacup. Hagrid, you don't have to seek the approval of the whole world. You only need to be responsible for those who like you, Hermione, Harry, Mark and Ron, people like you. If you resign, what will these people who support you think? Hermione was almost expelled for you, Hermione said to Hagrid with red eyes. Yes, Hagrid, come back, we really miss you. Dumbledore saw that Hagrid was persuaded, winked at Peter, and motioned for the two to go out and let Hermione talk to Hagrid. After Peter and Dumbledore left, Hagrid wiped his eyes and said to Hermione, what amazing people. Mr. Pedraic and Dumbledore are both amazing people. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 742 Aunt Jane. Hello, my name is Chiyuxuan. Yes, he's amazing. A smile appeared on Hermione's lips. Did you know, Hagrid, we were dancing partners at the Christmas ball? Hagrid, yes, Hermione, you forgot that I also attended the Christmas ball, Hermione said, and her face turned even more red. Realizing that he might have said something wrong, Hagrid changed the subject. You are alright, Hermione, I was so stupid, and my father would definitely be embarrassed for me if I did this. As he said this, his tears flowed again. Hagrid wiped them away with the back of his hand and said, I haven't shown you a photo of my father yet, have I? Without waiting for Hermione to speak, Hagrid stood up, walked quickly to the closet, opened a drawer, and took out a photo to show Hermione. There was a short wizard in the photo, and his eyes were narrowed like Hagrid's. The other party sat on Hagrid's shoulder and smiled happily. This was taken shortly after I entered Hogwarts, Hagrid said hoarsely. My father was so happy. He thought I had become a wizard, but I disappointed him. I have never been very good at magic. I may not be the kind of person he expected, but at least he didn't see me being expelled. He died when I was in the 2nd grade, he paused and continued, after my father died, it was Dumbledore who always protected me. He found me a job as a gamekeeper. Professor Dumbledore is different. He trusts others and always gives everyone equal opportunities. This is exactly what makes him completely different from the principals of other magic schools. Hagrid looked out the window at Dumbledore who was talking to Peter. As long as you have talent, Dumbledore will accept you to Hogwarts. He never discriminates against anyone. Even if he knows that a person has a bad background, he believes that the other person will have a promising future. This approach is very respectable, but some people don't understand this. Some people always discriminate against you because of your background. Hermione was slightly touched when she heard this. At school, she was discriminated against because of her bloodline and was called a mudblood. Hermione looked at Peter outside the window. Mr. Peter's family should be considered the most powerful family in the wizarding world. No, not only in the wizarding world, but even in countless parallel universes. But Mr. Peter never talked about bloodline issues. and never discriminated against those with bad backgrounds. Outside Hagrid's Forbidden Forest hut, Peter was talking to Dumbledore. Mr. Padraic, the level you set for the Triwizard Tournament is too difficult. This may not be a problem for your children, but for Harry, Fleur and others, it is undoubtedly a huge and dangerous challenge. Dumbledore talked about the issue of the Triwizard Tournament. I know, Professor Dumbledore, Peter nodded, but my goal is not only to set levels for the warriors, but most importantly, I want people in the magic world to gain some knowledge of other worlds, instead of holding on to magic that has never changed for hundreds of years and never refusing to accept changes in the outside world. Dumbledore was slightly stunned when he heard Peter's words. In the first round of the Triwizard Tournament, Raven, Loki, Wanda, and Zatanna all used magic that was not part of this world. Peter smiled at Hermione, who was standing in Hagrid's hut and looking at him, and then turned to Dumbledore and said, I think it's right for a school to be inclusive. In addition, this may arouse the interest of students in the magic world in exploring and learning magic from other systems. And, Professor Dumbledore, since I will enter your world, will there be other forces invading here in the future? I think the biggest enemy of the magic world now is not the mysterious man, but the unknown enemy lurking in the dark and may invade at any time. Peter said to the stunned Dumbledore with an unchanged expression, the dark forces are lurking in the multiverse, and we have to prepare for the future. He was not completely fooling Dumbledore. Sitting on a golden toilet, the dark forces that Peter saw would eventually invade his own universe, and they were powerful dark forces that merged multiple universes. Since the Dark Legion has already invaded the Warhammer world and has established a relationship with the 4 warp vendors, it is not surprising that it has entered the Hogwarts world. Facing the possible battles in the future, it is better to let these students of the magic school gain some experience and improve their combat effectiveness. In the future, they may have to wear power armor and become Astartes warriors on the front line. Peter had imagined the wizards of Hogwarts, wearing power armor, holding oversized wands in their left hands and chain swords in their right hands, fighting the enemy on the battlefield, shouting for Gryffindor and so on. Dumbledore didn't know that Peter was paying attention to his students. After a moment of silence, he said to him, if the war you mentioned really breaks out, then in order to protect our own world, both I and my students will contribute our strength to protect this world. Dumbledore looked into his eyes, I want you to make sure, Peter, that you don't treat them as bargaining chips that can be sacrificed at will. No, of course I won't. Peter made a promise to the headmaster, and at the same time cast his eyes on Hermione in the hut. Many of these people here, I watched them grow up. After finishing the conversation with Dumbledore, Peter and Hermione returned to Hogwarts together. What did you talk about, Hermione? Peter asked Hermione. Hermione said happily, Hagrid said that he would cheer up. He has figured it out and will never look down on himself because of other people's discrimination. He is also grateful to me for punishing Rita Skeeter. She quickly asked Peter, Mr. Peter, what did you talk about with Headmaster Dumbledore? We talked about the employment of future Hogwarts students, Peter said seriously. Hermione nodded in confusion. Oh, there's still a long time before I graduate, so I don't have to worry too much. By the way, Mr. Peter, she asked Peter expectantly, can you teach me runes and the illusion magic of Loki? Peter was stunned for a moment, and looking at Hermione who was so eager to learn, it was difficult to refuse. Of course, if you are interested, thank you, Uncle Peter. Hermione happily took Peter's arm. Peter, am I an uncle again? 1 month later. Padrick Farm. Jane, who was receiving treatment in Gotham, rushed to the farm. After a month of treatment, her complexion has improved a lot. I've talked to Bruce, Jane. He said your treatment is very effective and the spread of cancer cells has been effectively controlled, Peter said to Jane, but the premise is that you must cooperate with the treatment, Jane. You can't sneak into Wang Technologies' laboratory again. Jane apologized to Peter a little embarrassedly. Sorry, I just want to learn about the scientific research results of this world. The results of astronomy and physics here amaze me. Looking at the facilities near the farm, and then looking at the two Lolita beside Peter, who were curiously looking at her, Bakugo and Wei. Are these your daughters? Jane asked in surprise. Actually, Bakugo and Wei are my 2 youngest daughters. Peter touched Bakugo and Wei's hair and explained to Jane. But you're not married yet, right? Well, yes, I'm single. Peter coughed, lowered his head, and saw a speechless expression flashing in Bakugo's eyes. He reached out and pinched Bakugo's cheeks. You naughty child, are you still secretly complaining about your father in your heart? Well, Your love life seems to be a little messy, Peter, Jane said as she walked over to greet Bakugo and Wei. She didn't care about Peter's messy love life. She was lucky enough to be alive now. Hello, I'm Jane Foster. Jane squatted down and stretched out her hand to Bao and Wei. Bao hesitated for a moment, stretched out her hand and shook it. I'm Bao, the runaway lolly, the daughter of Peter Patrick, the son of Zuan, the guardian of Patrick's farm in Asgard. Seeing that Bao had given herself so many titles, Wei next to her was not to be outdone. I'm Wei, the Smallville law enforcement officer, the daughter of Peter Patrick, the son of Zuan, and my Chinese name is Chu Yuxun. Hey, that's enough, Wei. Seeing that Wei was getting more and more outrageous, Peter quickly stopped her. We'll discuss your Chinese name later. Peter picked up Bakugo and Wei and said to Jane, who was a little confused, tomorrow is the True Wizard Tournament. I want to invite you to watch the game. You shouldn't stay in the hospital all the time. I think it's best to go out and relax. What is Hogwarts? A magic school. You can think of it as a magical world. Jane nodded, not quite understanding. An interested look appeared on her face. I'm looking forward to it. When are we going there? Today? Peter pointed to a school bus parked outside that Jane hadn't noticed before she came in. The next day. Harry, who was late, rushed through the corridor and ran down the stairs 3 steps at a time. There were only a few people who were dragging their feet in the hallway. These students had finished breakfast and were passing through the oak door to watch the second project. Everyone looked at Harry in surprise as he ran past like lightning. When he jumped down the stone steps, he knocked Colin and Dennis Crivet into the air. Harry then ran down the lawn and saw that the seats where he had watched the project last month were now lined up in tiers and were already full. Chapter 743, Harry transforms into Astartes and welcomes My Magic and Bolter. Harry walked around the place where most people were gathered and walked quickly towards the referees. The referees were sitting at a table covered with a golden tablecloth. Raven, Fleur, Mark and others stood at the referees' table, watching Harry running towards them at full speed. I'm here, I'm so sorry, Harry said to everyone breathlessly. Because he didn't pay attention to his feet, he slipped in the mud and stopped, accidentally splashing Fleur's robes. Fleur glared at the reckless Harry. Harry, where have you been? Don't you know that today is the day of the competition? Everyone knows that the competition will start at 9:30, a domineering voice next to him said to him unsatisfiedly. The competition will start soon, go and get ready. Harry turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice, and saw Percy Weasley sitting at the referee's table. Mr. Crouch was unable to come, and he was replaced by Ron's brother, Percy Weasley. Okay, Percy, Ludo Bagman stopped Percy. When he saw Harry, he seemed to be relieved. Let him take a breath. Dumbledore on the referee's bench smiled at Harry, but Karkaroff and Madame Maxime seemed very unhappy to see him. From the expressions on their faces, they obviously thought he would not show up. After all, this year's competition was too dangerous compared to the previous ones. The two thought that Harry had given up because of cowardice. Why didn't Mr. Barty Crouch come? And I heard from the students of Hogwarts that Mr. Crouch's refereeing job was given to Percy Weasley. Gwen, who was sitting next to Peter, asked him curiously. She remembered that the director of the Ministry of Magic had served as a referee before, but she didn't see him today. Peter thought for a moment and said to the curious Gwen, he is busy looking for his son now. Jane, who was sitting next to Peter, didn't know the details, and asked Peter curiously, is his son missing? No. Peter pointed to the teacher of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class standing next to the referee seat and said to Jane, that Mad-Eye Moody is his son. Barty Crouch Jr. pretending to be him. Hearing Peter's words, Azu and Clark looked at him in shock. You mean, Dad, Mad-Eye Moody was fake from the beginning? Yes, from the beginning he was not the real Mad-Eye Moody, but was pretended by someone. If you two use your perspective eyes, you can easily see Barty Crouch Jr.'s transfiguration. Jane tightened her woolen coat and asked Peter with a little creepy, so what's going on? She was shocked by the magnificent and fantastic magic world at first, but she didn't expect that the magic world had such a side. Peter organized his words and told Azu and others what he knew. Barty Crouch himself is the director of the International Magical Exchange and Cooperation Department of the Ministry of Magic. He is serious and fluent in multiple languages. He used to be the Minister of Magical Enforcement. Before, when Voldemort led the Death Eaters, Barty Crouch won the trust of most people in the magical world because he advocated the use of tough measures to deal with Voldemort. He even imprisoned Sirius Black in Azkaban without trial. Because of his unparalleled reputation, many people were optimistic about his position as Minister of Magic, but unexpectedly, his son Barty Crouch Jr. was also a Death Eater. After this was revealed, his momentum plummeted, and he was finally transferred to the Department of International Magical Exchange and Cooperation, and Cornelius Fudge took over as minister. Later, Barty Crouch entered Azkaban at the request of his wife, and used Polyjuice Potion to let his seriously ill wife exchange identities with Barty Crouch Jr. to die instead. After rescuing his son from Azkaban, Barty used the Imperious Curse to control his behavior, used the invisibility cloak to cover his tracks for many years, and ordered the house elf Winky to monitor his son. Barty even cast a powerful memory charm on Bertha Jorkins, who discovered the truth, and finally spent many years in this safe state. During the Triwizard Tournament, Barty Crouch and Ludo Bagman were jointly responsible for the Quidditch World Cup and the Triwizard Tournament. Due to Winky's pleading, Barty Crouch agreed to let his son watch the Quidditch World Cup, but Barty Crouch Jr. took the opportunity to launch the Dark Mark. Afterwards, Barty angrily dismissed Winky, the house elf, but unexpectedly gave Voldemort a good opportunity. Voldemort and Peter Pettigrew attacked Crouch's house, controlled him with the Imperious Curse, forced him to stay homesick, and handed over all affairs to Percy Weasley. After listening to Peter's story, Azu and others were slightly stunned. After a moment of hesitation, Zu looked at Mad-Eye Moody, his expression became serious, and he said to Peter, "Dad, I'll go kill him." No, I want to see how Voldemort is going to play this time." Peter stretched out his hand to stop Zu, signaling him to be patient. Seeing that Peter didn't let him do it, Zu said worriedly, "But what if they want to do something bad to the game and want to mess up?" "No, it shouldn't be. Their target is only Harry, or..." Peter paused and cast his eyes on Tom. "Their target is Harry and Tom." Now Tom looks more and more like Voldemort in his youth. This matter is probably known to Voldemort. Tom, who was being stared at by Peter, seemed to feel Peter's gaze. He raised his head and waved to Peter. "How about it, Tom? Are you ready?" Mad-Eye Moody walked up and asked Tom. Of course, Tom nodded. He didn't know why this teacher of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class had always paid special attention to him. Harry, standing behind Fleur, waved to Ron in the stands, bent down, supported his knees with his hands, and gasped for air. What surprised him was that he hadn't seen Hermione. Where had Hermione gone? He suddenly felt a sharp pain in one side of his chest and abdomen, as if a knife had been inserted into his ribs, but it was too late to relieve the pain. He had spent too much time reading last night and had eaten something casually in the morning, which caused his stomach to be uncomfortable. Ludo Bagman had come to the middle of the warriors and ordered them to line up, with each person 10 feet apart. Harry was at the end of the line, next to Fleur. Fleur was wearing a blue short robe, had her wand out, and was ready. "How is it, Harry?" Bagman led Harry forward a few steps, away from the crowd, and asked in a low voice, "Do you know what you have to do?" "Yes," Harry said, panting. Peter had already given him a hint of what this level was about. And he, Fleur, and Tom had secretly trained in power armor. In the words of Mr. Peter, the three of them were not as strong as Raven and the others, so they had to do intensive training. He believed that with Peter giving him the advantage, he already had a considerable advantage. Bagman squeezed Harry's shoulder hard, then turned back to the referee's table. He pointed his wand at his throat, just like in the World Cup, and said, loud voice, so his voice spread like thunder in the stands. "Listen everyone, our warriors are in the positions. When I blow the whistle, the second event will begin. They have a whole day to rescue their friends trapped on the alien planet." "What?" Harry was stunned when he heard that his goal this time was to save his friends. But the next second, he was pushed into the portal in a daze. Swish, Harry, who entered the portal, felt his eyes adapt to the light and found that he had come to an unfamiliar environment. The surface was red rock, and in the distance were unfamiliar tall trees. Star-Lord, who came in first, found that there were many power armors placed where he was teleported. "This should be the props that Dad prepared for us." Star-Lord looked at the power armor and picked a suitable one to put on. The power armor modified by Tony Stark did not have multiple functions and was bloated like a jar, like the one provided by Horace. Tony Stark's simplified power armor removed the analysis and locking systems, increased flexibility and lightness, and made it lighter and fit more closely. Seeing Star-Lord put it on, others also put on power armor one after another. Although Raven was very resistant to this thing, she had to abide by the rules of the game. What a weird competition rule. Inside the power armor, Raven was experiencing the various functions of the power armor while complaining, "The purpose of the competition is to rescue our friends from the monsters within a limited time." Raven already knew that the friend she was going to save was Bruce. I really don't know how Dad convinced Bruce to let him be an NPC. The friend Mark was going to save was Ginny. Tom's friend was Astoria Greengrass, and Loki's friend was Zangchu. Could it be that they were going to capture their dance partners at the Christmas ball and treat them as NPCs to be saved? As for Wanda, the person she was going to save was her brother Quicksilver. Star-Lord's friend was Chloe. Everyone had to rescue their friends trapped in the dangerous area within one day. Whoever took the shortest time would achieve the best result. Harry was in the power armor, holding the wand in his left hand and the bolter in his right hand. He was shocked and hadn't figured out what to do yet, and the virtual display immediately planned a rough route for him to save people. Harry no longer hesitated, operated the power armor, and ran forward quickly. At the same time, others also began to act. In the stands, the students of Hogwarts were stunned to see Harry and others running in the jungle wearing tin cans. Is this still a competition in the wizarding world? Is there going to be an interstellar war? Chapter 744, Give the Wizards of Hogwarts a Shock. Hey, Harry. Harry heard a voice while running. He stopped and looked back, and found that it was Mark wearing power armor, rushing towards him. Mark in the power armor, neither carrying a bolter nor a chainsword, just wearing power armor, walking towards him step by step. Your behavior is a bit strange today, Harry. Are you feeling uncomfortable? No, I'm just a little worried about Hermione. Harry then remembered that he was busy saving Hermione and forgot about Mark. I'm also worried about Ginny's situation. Let's act together. Mark said that the two of them would work together. Of course, Harry naturally said that he would not object. Harry, you don't need to hold your bolter so tightly. Hold it lightly, and let your body absorb the recoil. As the two of them ran forward in power armor, Mark instructed Harry how to use the weapon better. Sure. While Harry thanked Mark, he asked Mark embarrassedly, "Mark, have you used this kind of weapon?" "Yes, it was invented by Horus. I've seen Baku and the others shoot it." Harry nodded. "So are we fighting alien creatures now?" Almost. Hearing Mark's admission, an expression of disbelief appeared on Harry's face. "It's unimaginable. We have become space warriors and have come to an alien planet." "Yes, the universe is vast and incredible," Mark said to Harry with mixed feelings. "I have always felt that maybe magic is to relieve our anxiety and gain satisfaction when we cannot understand the universe. It is spiritual comfort, the pillar of the soul, and the source of wisdom. We use magic to help ourselves through the dark years, but the universe is another situation. We can learn and understand the framework of reality. We observe the inside of the stars and find that there is no clockwork inside, and there is no golden chariot to drag them around. We realize that there is no need for God, gods, demons, elves or souls. The greatest achievement of mankind in history is to transform itself into a secular civilization. Maybe," he smiled at Harry, "maybe one day, we need to expedition to other planets." "Harry, just treat this competition as some kind of advanced training." Harry was a little surprised when he heard Mark's words. He didn't expect Mark to say such profound words. "I know that Horace calls Mr. Peter the Emperor Dad," Harry asked Mark in a low voice curiously. "Could it be that Mr. Peter is really the Emperor of the universe?" "Probably not." Mark smiled awkwardly. "That's just what Horace called him. The rest of us have never called him that." Although he said so, Mark had already begun to doubt that his future father's footprints would not really be all over the universe. He coughed and said to Harry, "If it's true, when you graduate, come and work for your dad. Maybe you will go to many different planets." According to the route provided by the power armor system, Harry and Mark talked to the destination. The lightning scour on Harry's forehead was burning fiercely, but it was far less than the vibration of the motor of the power armor on his chest, which made him suffocate. The ceramic steel breastplate inlaid with a double-headed eagle emblem pressed his ribs and trembled, and the chainsaw sword in his right hand trembled with the frequency of his heartbeat. "This place is very unusual. Be careful," Mark whispered to Harry. "I understand," Harry responded while walking forward cautiously. The message reminded Harry that Hermione, whom he wanted to save, was nearby. Taking a deep breath, Harry carefully looked at the trees around him. Crash! The next second, a alien-like creature suddenly jumped out of the bushes. Under the dark shell, the monster rushed towards Harry like lightning. tear into pieces. Harry, who was ready to fight at any time, quickly waved his wand, and the magic red light wrapped around the top of the wand. The monster alien that rushed towards him was instantly cut into 3 pieces. When the yellow-green blood touched the shoulder armor, it evaporated into foul-smelling smoke. After Harry dealt with a monster, several alien-like monsters emerged from the woods. Their exoskeletons glowed with obsidian, and their tails stung the air. Facing the hordes of monsters, Harry jumped into the sky with his power boots. Then he threw out 3 invisible divine blades as he fell, and the spell surged several times under the blessing of the power sword's energy field, cutting off several alien monsters and the thick trees nearby. Thunder explosion, the spell vibrated through the helmet's psychic amplifier, and the trees above Harry's head fell down. Acid and flames flowed among the ruins, and Harry suddenly heard Mark's voice from the communicator. Left. Harry, be careful on the left. Hearing Mark's reminder, Harry hurriedly attacked the alien monster on the left. With a bang, the alien monster was directly blasted out by the grenade launcher in Harry's right hand. Hogwarts School. At this time, the students were all stunned to see Harry's brave performance that was not human. Can magic be used like this? After Harry put on the power armor, the power of the spells he released increased several times under the blessing of the energy field. Moreover, the psychic oscillator of the power armor made the spells Harry chanted more powerful. Ron looked at Harry like a humanoid Gundam and widened his eyes. Such armor is so handsome, it would be great if I had a set of such equipment in the future. Professor Karkaroff and Madame Maxime in the referee seat were also shocked and stunned when they saw Harry's performance. The two looked at each other, and they were very curious about this set of equipment that could amplify magic. Mad-Eye Moody, his one eye turned and he fell into thought. Dumbledore looked at Peter, who was talking to Jane in the stands, and his eyes showed a thoughtful look. Peter was talking to Jane, but his eyes were always on Mark and Harry in the projection. He didn't expect Harry to be a Seeker, and the Seeker amplifier would work on him. The so-called Seeker, in the Warhammer world, is the energy that Seekers draw from the warp and the ability they show in the real world. Seekers are the representatives of human future possibilities, and they are also the most deadly threats. Whenever Seekers use Seekers, the projection of their souls attracts demons to chase them in the non-material world. Demons are like moths to a flame, but for Seekers, it means the end of life. The Inquisition is always hunting down these Seekers who are considered dangerous. Many Seekers spend the rest of their lives in the Inquisition's black ships. Some of them will sacrifice themselves and become fuel for the Emperor's eternal torch, while a few Seekers who pass the test may become combat Seekers or think tank curators and receive further training. Does the magical energy of Hogwarts have some similarity with the energy of the warp? Peter touched his chin and fell into deep thought. On the other side, Fleur, wearing power armor, has arrived near the ruins of the building. Wearing armor, she knocked open the door frame of the stone building that had been weathered for many years. As soon as she entered, she saw a scene that made her feel incredible. She saw a human on the wall, whose chest was heaving and nurturing some kind of creature. The alien egg was attached to the other skin, and the viscous network of blood vessels covered the entire space. No, looking at this scene, Fleur, who felt nauseous and vomited, took a step back. The classmates of Hogwarts who saw Fleur's scene were also stunned. Headmaster Dumbledore stood up, walked to Bagman next to the referee's seat, and discussed with him. This scene was definitely not arranged by the school and the organizer. Unexpected situations occurred, and Dumbledore and Bagman discussed whether to suspend the game. Dad, what's going on? Why did someone become the parasite of the alien? Azu asked curiously beside him. Obviously, the person on the wall was parasitized by the monster. Peter glanced at Mad-Eye Moody below, whose expression remained unchanged, and whispered, I guess it was probably Mad-Eye Moody, that is, Barty Jr. pretending to be Moody, and other Death Eaters who entered this planet in advance, and this corpse parasitized by the alien should be the corpse of the Death Eater. Are you saying this is Voldemort's man? Azu asked in shock. Yes, I can't think of any other possibility except this. Dumbledore and Bagman discussed whether to suspend the game. Fleur on the other side did not have much time to think. Seeing that the corpse that seemed to be a human being parasitized by the monster began to wriggle, Fleur resisted the nausea and took out the grenade launcher and aimed it. At the moment when Fleur aimed, the abdomen of the parasite suddenly exploded, and a gray-white new mutant broke out of the chest. This monster had a wrinkled face and strange claws, and the spine seemed to be able to penetrate the stone floor. After the monster found Furin, it immediately attacked her. The shield on Furin's left arm barely blocked the acid breath, and the emblem carved on the shield surface made a scream in the corrosion. Bang! Furin, who was unable to react in time, was directly knocked out and fell to the ground. Furin, who fell to the ground, staggered and was about to get up. But the new monster had already pounced on her. Just as Furin was about to be bitten by the monster, a figure entered the place. Riven, wearing power armor, arrived in time. She raised the chainsaw sword. Go to hell, Riven faced the monster, her eyes glowed with a dark glow, and steam gushed out of the gaps in the power armor. In an instant, she moved in front of the monster, and stabbed the chainsaw sword in her hand into the mouth of the alien-human fusion. The rotating saw teeth collided with the monster's ring-shaped sharp teeth, making a whine. The moment the monster's tail whip swept through the load-bearing beam, Riven dived and shot a burst of black magic energy into the monster's chest folds. With a deafening boom, the alien was instantly knocked out, and the entire ruins began to shake violently. Chapter 745 Horus, I'm driving a power armor, and Riven is no match for me. Are you okay? After killing the alien monster, Raven walked up to the stunned Fleur lying on the ground and asked her. Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. Raven's performance when facing the monster just now stunned her. Even if she wore power armor and didn't just use magic, was Raven so strong? That's good. Raven stretched out her hand and pulled her up. There won't be only one alien monster around here. After pulling Fleur up, Raven looked around and said to her, I must rescue Bruce Wayne as quickly as possible. The information provided by the power armor shows that he is nearby. If your target is also nearby, we can act together. Yes, the power armor reminds me that the person I want to save, Roger Davis, is also nearby. Fleur thanked Fleur. Thank you, Fleur. If it weren't for you, I would definitely have been injured just now. You're welcome. Fleur shook her head and suddenly said to the other party, Fortunately, it wasn't my father you invited to the dance, otherwise he would have become a hostage. Fleur, Rita Skeeter said in the newspaper that you are a father complex, and now it seems that it is not groundless. Fleur couldn't help but complain in her heart. On another part of the planet, Tom Patrick's face remained calm under the shadow of the power helmet. At this moment, the ceramic steel chest armor with a double-headed eagle mark rose and fell with his breathing, as if countless vipers were walking under the armor. In the deep cave, Tom stepped over the rock crystals under his feet. Those fluorescent blue rock crystals burst under his boots, emitting a resonance similar to crying. Tom walked forward while watching the movements around him. After arriving at an open space, he found that the surrounding rock walls were full of alien egg sacs. The sticky regeneration fluid dripped along the rock wall. Tom frowned and released the fiery fire curse to burn the egg sacs to ashes. But before he could release the fiery fire curse, a crackling sound was heard, and dozens of alien monsters broke out of the calcification layer. Puff, the leading alien opened its mouth, and before the scream came out, Tom's power sword had pierced its throat. The power sword used by Tom is one of the most outstanding types of power weapons, and it was also made by Tony Stark after Horus provided information. When the power battery is activated, the blade is shrouded by a deadly destructive energy field. This force field allows the blade to easily tear through armor and flesh. The power sword held by Tom poured into the alien's body, and dazzling flames burst out from the cracks of the shell, causing several of his kind to explode into a bloody rain. What a weak beast, Tom whispered in Parcel Twang, and the bolter in his left hand spewed out flames. Each bullet carried a powerful energy, and the alien that was hit did not die immediately, but fell to the ground with convulsions. Acid blood and rotten flesh splashed in the cave, and Tom walked through the melee area with elegant steps. At the same time, he released the removal magic to automatically remove the mucus and sour blood on the power armor. After clearing the monster, Tom quickly came to a dark underground cave room, according to the information provided by the power armor. In the room, Astoria Greengrass, surrounded by a silver circular energy shield, was sleeping inside. After finding the target he wanted to save, Tom immediately turned off the shield according to the information provided by the power armor and woke up Astoria Greengrass. Astoria Greengrass, who was gradually waking up, saw Tom in front of her. After a few seconds of being stunned, she immediately hugged him excitedly. Great, Tom, I thought you wouldn't come, the frightened Astoria Greengrass said to Tom excitedly. Tom, who was unable to understand the other party's enthusiasm for a moment, suddenly became a little stiff. Okay, we have to leave here, Astoria, it's not safe here, we have to leave. After adjusting his mood, Tom urged her to follow him and leave. In the underground environment exuding a strange atmosphere, he would not think that his test was over. With Astoria, Tom quickly left the cave and rushed outside. At this time, Wanda and Star-Lord also rescued Quicksilver and Chloe. After the two met in the underground cave world, they fought their way out of the siege. Wanda's long crimson hair fluttered in the fishy wind of the cave, and the halo of chaos magic made the sticky rock wall even more blood red. Star-Lord was wearing power armor, and his boots left 2 scorch marks on the ground. He fired backwards, and the bullets from the elemental gun nailed the alien monsters that rushed over to the calcified column. The acid blood corroded the holes, making a sizzling sound that made people feel their teeth ache. 10 o'clock ceiling, Star-Lord rolled to avoid the acid, and shouted to Wanda while switching the elemental gun to frost mode. Wanda raised her left hand without looking back, and several aliens that were hanging upside down suddenly stopped in midair. Fine scarlet cracks appeared on the surface of their shells, like puppets hanging by invisible silk threads. How about this gift? Star-Lord pulled the trigger continuously, and the elemental gun fired bullets to kill the alien monsters one after another. Chloe, who was protected by Quicksilver, almost collapsed when she saw the two attacking the alien monsters that kept rushing over. Oh my god. I shouldn't have agreed to Peter to be a hostage in such a dangerous place. If you hadn't come to save me, would I have been eaten by this monster? Chloe said to Star-Lord and Wanda in a collapsed tone. No, it shouldn't be. I think Mr. Peter will take action to ensure our safety. Quicksilver was more open-minded and comforted Chloe in a low voice. Of course you are not afraid. I am just an ordinary person. Do you know what the most likely result is for an ordinary person to enter a monster's lair? Of course it is to be eaten. I am not as blindly confident as you. Oh my god, Peter must compensate me for my mental loss. If I had known earlier, I would have stayed at home to accompany Lana and the others shopping, and I wouldn't have to suffer this terrifying torture here. Just as Chloe was complaining, the whole air gradually became boiling. Countless types of aliens broke through the rock wall and rushed towards Wanda and Star-Lord. Faced with more monsters like a tide, Star-Lord and Wanda had to protect Quicksilver and Chloe and gradually retreated. Tom, who was in the same monster lair as Wanda and Star-Lord, also felt the boiling of the monsters. Seeing more and more monsters attacking, Tom's pupils shrank. He inserted the power sword into the ground, and the fiery curse poured into the earth's crust along the hilt. The emerald magic flame merged with a plasma flow provided by the power furnace, turning into a fire python and rushing forward. The ignited alien fell to the ground screaming and making a miserable cry. Crucia, protecting Astoria behind him, Tom tapped his wand lightly in the air, and the curse ripples penetrated the alien monsters rushing over. The power armor roared under the energy infusion, and the shoulder-mounted laser shooting device automatically locked onto the aliens rushing over. While dealing with more and more monsters, Tom met up with Star-Lord and Wanda at the corner. Before the three people who met each other had time to speak, the larger figure that seemed to be the alien queen began to appear. Jane, who was sitting next to Peter in the stands of Hogwarts, asked Peter in shock, "What kind of monster is this? Why do they feel like killing machines?" Peter explained to her, "A monster similar to the alien." Alien, yes, the alien is an extremely aggressive parasitic alien species. It is a ferocious biological weapon. Its goal is to destroy any life that may pose a threat to it. The degraded species among the aliens are like wasps or bees. They live in groups, and the fertile queen will breed many subordinate species. These creatures are known for their powerful corrosive blood and molars, although their biological life cycle is in many ways their signature feature. In this life cycle, their genetic assimilation fluid is implanted into a living host, which then causes the tissues and organs in the host's chest cavity to become alien. Listening to Peter's explanation, Jane felt a creepy feeling in her heart. "Are you saying that the person we saw in the ruins just now was the one who was parasitized?" Peter nodded, "and this alien creature is more powerful than the aliens." As he spoke, Peter cast his eyes on the projection on the screen, looking at Tom and his group in the cave. These three people should have no problem dealing with the alien army. Looking at the figure of Tom who was fighting, Peter fell into deep thought. Tom's performance was beyond his expectations. The opponent combined the power armor with his spell, possessing a stronger combat power, and he remained calm when facing a group of monsters alone. "Emperor Dad," little Horace next to him interrupted his thoughts and asked him with some envy, "Emperor Dad, when can I wear the power armor and fight like them?" Watching the battle of Tom and others, the fighting factor in Horace's body has gradually awakened. "This is the true wizard tournament. You are not a student of Hogwarts yet, so you cannot participate. But if you are interested, Dad can take you to other planets to experience it." Horus proposed the idea of fighting, and Peter could not refuse. "Thank you, Emperor Dad." Horus thanked Peter excitedly. "I put on the armor, and I feel that they can't beat me." Horus was floating again, and said with a little pride, "Although Raven and Wanda's magic is very powerful, if I wear power armor, I am confident that I can defeat them." After hearing what Horus said, Peter pinched his face with his hand. "It's good to be confident, but Raven and Wanda can't be treated as normal. Have you forgotten that they can also transform?" Chapter 746, Did the foolish Hermione get the upper hand in the end? Did you hear anything? After rescuing Hermione and Ginny, Harry and Mark were about to leave when they heard a roar from a distance that seemed to be an alien monster. "Yes, I heard it." Hermione looked into the distance and said to Harry, "Maybe Raven or Tom is in trouble, but your mission is completed, Harry. You can return to the beginning along the same route and finish the second level of the competition." Hermione signaled that he could finish the project now. Harry checked the time in the power armor and said to Hermione and Mark hesitantly, "I think we have to help others. What if Tom and the others fail to rescue their friends? We can't just take care of ourselves." "Raven and the others are also our friends," Mark agreed with Harry's words. "I agree. Even if the time is up, we can't ignore them. Raven, Tom, and Loki are all my family." Hermione looked at the two people who had made up their minds and sighed helplessly. "Okay, I'll go with you. I'll be responsible for Ginny's safety." Seeing the suspicious eyes cast by Harry and Mark, Hermione pinched her waist and looked at the two. "What? Don't you believe me? I have been learning runes for a long time from Mr. Peter. Even if I am not wearing your strange armor, I can fight these monsters. Don't underestimate my recent learning results. Also, I was trapped just now because of the plot." Before Hermione finished speaking, several alien monsters rushed out with a crash and attacked the few people. Facing the sudden attack of the alien monsters, Hermione reacted quickly. The tip of the magic wand drew a blazing white track in the air, and the rune condensed into ice crystals on the path of the alien monsters. The moment the alien monster hit the condensed ice crystals, it was knocked away by the ice crystals, making a deafening sound. Flame, Hermione held the magic wand and protected Ginny, who was pale with fear in her heart, behind her, and released the rune. The spell passed through the rune she carved on the rock, and the orange fire snake suddenly exploded into a larger flame. The attack alien screamed in the flames. Hermione's brown curly hair stuck to her sweaty neck. She panted slightly and used runes and the magic she learned at Hogwarts to deal with the alien monster that rushed up. Bang! When the alien monster broke through the ice wall, acid brushed past Hermione's ears and the scorched hair fell down. When the alien's tail whip stabbed her heart, the rune outlined by Hermione's wand suddenly activated, and a huge battle axe phantom appeared in the air. With a click, the axe blade accurately stuck into the tail vertebrae of the alien monster. The alien monster screamed and was directly knocked out by the battle axe. Petrified, Hermione panted and retreated, waving her wand at the alien monster in the air that was knocked out by the battle axe. Clear spring-like water. As she chanted this spell, the underground dark river gushed out in response, and the water flow formed a high-pressure water blade under the guidance of the rune. With a bang, a nearby alien was pressed against the rock wall by the water flow, and the acid oozing from the cracks in its shell reacted with the river water in an exothermic manner. Hermione took the opportunity to use her last bit of magic to activate the rune, and the entire rock wall suddenly grew iron tree roots, nailing the screaming monster to death in the boiling water. Mark, who was fighting the alien monster, looked at Hermione's actions with a look of shock on his face. He didn't expect that Hermione's runes combined with the magic of Hogwarts would be so powerful. And Hermione showed that she was very skilled in runes. Did she just learn from her father for a month? Hogwarts stands. Peter looked at Hermione's performance and nodded with satisfaction. Hermione was smart. She learned the runes in just 1 month. He had been teaching rune magic to Raven, Tom, Mark, and Boom, but none of them seemed to be as fast as Hermione in understanding. Could it be that his runes would eventually be inherited by Hermione? Stroking his beard, Peter fell into deep thought. Is Hermione going to join the competition? She's very capable. Peter, your student is doing well. Jane looked at Hermione, who was originally a hostage of the monster, and was killing the alien without any fear, and couldn't help but praise her. Yes, she is very capable, although sometimes she can be stupid. Peter nodded and said. Hermione is not stupid, she is also very loving. She founded a protection organization called the Society for the Promotion of House Elves' Rights, SPEW. I heard her talk about it a few days ago. Gwen came over and joined the conversation. When Hermione was studying runes on the farm, she lived there for a while, and Gwen became good friends with her. Gwen also sat on Hermione's broom and experienced the experience of flying without wings. Gwen had always been very concerned that she could not fly in the sky like the villain Vulture, and now she realized a small dream. Elf, Jane didn't know the details, so she asked Gwen about what happened. Gwen then told Jane about it. At the Quidditch World Cup camp, when the dark mark appeared in the sky, the wizards from the Ministry of Magic who came later quickly put the crime on Winky, the house elf next to Barty Crouch Sr. Crouch Sr. knew the truth, but still pushed Winky out to take the blame, which undoubtedly broke Winky's heart. Next, the Ministry of Magic interrogated Winky in an extremely cruel way, which made Hermione more determined that house elves were an oppressed group that needed to be protected. So Hermione began to do her best to help the house elves in Hogwarts. She set up a protection organization called the Society for the Promotion of House Elves' Rights, SPEW for short, and tried many times to liberate these elves who worked in Hogwarts all year round but did not receive a penny of salary. Because in Hermione's view, according to their current lifestyle, they are actually not much different from slaves. Peter shook his head and said, but she was doomed to fail, because Hermione did not realize that the house elves' concept of slavery was deeply rooted in their hearts. Therefore, her efforts did not help the house elves, but made them feel insulted. Peter shrugged his shoulders and said to Jane and Gwen, so I said that sometimes Hermione is prone to stupidity, although sometimes, this kind of stupidity is not a bad thing. Peter smiled as he watched Hermione release the rune. On the other side, in the alien creature's nest, a storm-like sound roared in the cave, and the huge body of the alien queen that had appeared inserted its appendages into the rock wall, and the whole nest shook violently. Tom's power sword split the acid waterfall, and the ground on the blade crushed the approaching alien. Reptiles should stay in the cesspool. Tom sneered at the alien monster and continued to use the power sword to attack the besieged aliens. The chaos chain released by Wanda was crushing the neck of the alien. The scarlet energy instantly turned the alien creature into dust in the strong light. Kill the approaching alien, and Tom aimed his firepower at the alien queen. The flames produced by the fierce fire spell spread rapidly. Star-Lord was wearing power armor and bombarding the opponent with a grenade launcher. The underground world was narrow, and there was an ordinary person like Chloe here. Star-Lord could not use the energy of the gods, and could only use elemental guns and grenade launchers to attack. On the other side, Wanda's breath formed mist in the closed helmet, and the faint light at the joints of the power armor was so bright that she felt it was extremely dazzling. Approaching the alien queen, whose skin was hard and seemed to be able to resist ordinary physical attacks, Wanda was about to release magic. Bang! When the alien queen's tail whip came, Wanda's anti-gravity device on the shoulder armor was instantly overloaded. With the impact force, Wanda flew backwards and crashed into the sulfur rock wall. The flames from the back thrusters instantly burned the rock wall. Although she felt that the power armor was a bit of a hindrance, Wanda still resisted the idea of taking it off. This behavior is not polite, Wanda complained in a low voice, and the chainsaw sword on the right arm of the power armor was suddenly wrapped with scarlet energy. Several alien monsters jumped out of the slime waterfall behind the queen, and a dark glow appeared on their shells. The rocket boosters at the knees of the power armor burst out with blue flames. Wanda slid along the ground and swept the chainsaw sword across the alien group. The severed appendages were corrupted into vines by chaos magic before they hit the ground, and the surviving aliens were tied into cocoons. The queen screamed, and the acid sprayed from her mouth parts hit Wanda's power armor shield, instantly corroding honeycomb holes. Then the alien queen absorbed the power of the dead Green Lantern and burst into powerful green light, instantly knocking Tom and Star-Lord away. Bang! Tom's power armor rolled on the ground and smashed out, and Star-Lord was also knocked against the wall. No, this is not good, Wanda murmured, her pupils flooded with scarlet, and the reactor on the chest of the power armor burst into dazzling brilliance. With a boom, Wanda tore off the overheated plasma cannon on her left arm with her bare hands and used chaos energy to reconstruct the barrel. When the green energy spit out by the queen attacked again, Wanda roared, and the energy released by the plasma cannon hit the alien queen with a boom. At the same time, Harry and Mark, Hermione, and Ginny had already rushed into the cave. In the huge explosion, several people felt the ground shaking violently. What happened? Hermione asked Mark in shock. I don't know, but it's obvious that this tunnel is going to collapse. Raven and Fleur, who are rushing here, and Bruce, who is acting as an NPC, also heard the deafening explosion. Chapter 747 Tom was kidnapped. The murderer is Voldemort. In the bright light of the explosion, Wanda's chainsaw sword pierced into the crack of the alien queen, and the powerful chaotic energy poured into the opponent's nerve center. The alien queen wailed and fell back heavily. The collapse of the entire cave began to intensify. Chloe was held by Quicksilver and used super speed to constantly avoid the falling building debris. This place is about to collapse. We have to leave here. Star-Lord saw Wanda destroy the queen and destroy the cave at the same time. He shouted to everyone in the falling building. At the same time, Raven, Fleur, Harry and Mark also rushed here. Bruce looked at Wanda, who had defeated the alien queen, in shock. He promised Peter to act as the hostage actor rescued by Raven this time, with the purpose of studying the alien monster born here. Unexpectedly, the alien's nest now seems to be destroyed by Wanda. Fortunately, several aliens were captured before and locked up in the tightly sealed underground space of the Batcave, otherwise he was really worried that he would make a wasted trip. Bruce was wearing a Batman uniform at this time, and the gun in his hand fired bullets to kill the aliens that rushed over nearby. The bat darts kept firing, killing the nearby monsters one by one. Quick! Get out of here, Bruce shouted to everyone while fighting the alien monsters. Mark picked up Ginny, and the power armor blocked the dust and rock fragments that fell from above for him. At the same time, he blasted the nearby monsters with a single-handed grenade launcher, running in the front to clear the way for others. Harry was holding Hermione and running in the tunnel as if walking on flat ground. The power armor gave him strong endurance and strength, allowing him to run with Hermione in his arms easily. He now likes this set of power armor with multiple functions and a strong sense of security. Harry plans to save money to buy one from Mr. Peter after the game. I just don't know how expensive this thing is. Harry suspects that even if he takes out all the gold galleons left to him by his parents, it may not be enough. Tom and Wanda, who stayed at the end, kept clearing the alien monsters that were chasing them. Tom's power sword got stuck in the spine of the alien monster that rushed up. Sparks from the joints of the power armor steamed the acid blood into green mist. After the power sword killed the alien, he caught a glimpse of Wanda's crimson figure not far away. Wanda released chaos magic, crushing several nearby aliens into blood mud. The fluorescent moss on the top of the cave flickered, flashing like millions of dying fireflies. Tom quickly retracted his sight and his shoulder armor flickered open the micro-missile compartment. 3 missiles with engraved warheads drilled into the cracks in the rock and blew the alien eggs that were about to break out of their cocoons. At the same time, the power armor mask showed that there was a life signal approaching in the rear passage, and the value was several times that of ordinary aliens. Tom turned around suddenly, and a mutant appeared from the void. On the mutant's exoskeleton, a black glow floated, and the acid spewed from its mouth seemed to be more corrosive. Tom's expression did not change, and the power sword pierced the throat of the alien that pounced on him. At the same time, a fatal curse was fired at the mutant. After forcing the mutant back, Tom's wand fired a fierce fire curse, and the flames rolled away instantly. Just as Tom continued to attack, a portal suddenly opened behind him. Tom, who didn't notice his back, was pulled into the portal. Wanda saw this scene and wanted to remind him, but it was too late. She could only watch Tom being pulled away by the portal that suddenly appeared. No, with a whoosh, Tom was teleported to an unfamiliar area. He opened his eyes and saw that he was standing in a desolate field. There was fog all around, and a strange atmosphere was swirling in it. Tom, who was a little confused, stood up and looked around. How could he be teleported to this place? Was it a test set by his father? While walking forward cautiously, Tom thought secretly in his heart. Tom, a familiar voice sounded behind him. Hearing the voice, Tom turned around suddenly and raised a wanted hand to the direction where the voice came from. But he didn't expect the other party to move faster. The man in a black robe and cloak stretched out his wand towards him. Swoosh, the rope formed by black energy instantly tied him up. The man in the cloak instantly used magic to conjure ropes to tie Tom tightly, tying him up one by one from the neck to the ankles. Tom, shocked, heard the rapid and slight breathing from inside the hood. Tom didn't struggle. He looked at the other party's outstretched hand and saw that the other party was missing a finger. He immediately knew who the other party was, Wormtail. Wormtail, who escaped from Azkaban. Wormtail, is it you? But Wormtail didn't answer Tom. At this time, he had finished tying the rope, but he still didn't dare to relax. He pointed his wand at Tom cautiously. He knew that as the son of Peter Patrick, Tom's magic power was strong, and now he was wearing power armor, which was far beyond his ability to resist. At this time, Wormtail's fingers trembled uncontrollably, and he used magic to create knots. When he was sure that Tom seemed unable to move, Wormtail breathed a long sigh of relief. After that, he hurried away without saying a word. Tom, who maintained a calm expression, had roughly guessed who was waiting for him here. He turned his eyes and looked around. The next second, he seemed to hear a sound at his feet. Looking down, he found a big snake slithering on the grass and swimming towards him. Behind the snake, a dark shadow gradually walked towards him. When the other party walked not far in front of him, the shadow, who was bathed in darkness, lifted his hood and revealed his true face. The other party's face was paler than a skeleton, his eyes were red, his nose was flat like a snake's nose, and his nostrils were two thin slits. Seeing Voldemort, or another self, appear in front of him, Tom's face was slightly surprised. Voldemort turned his eyes away from Tom. His hand was like a pale spider, and his slender pale fingers stroked his chest. The red eyes looked brighter in the dark, and the pupils were two slits, like cat's eyes. The snake had come back, hissing, and circling around Tom. Voldemort then reached his unusually long fingers into a pocket on his clothes and pulled out a wand. He stroked the wand gently, then pointed it at Wormtail, lifted him up from the ground, and threw him near Tom, leaving him to lie there and cry. After doing all this, Voldemort turned his bright red eyes to Tom and let out a cold, sharp, sinister laugh. "Tom Patrick, we finally meet," he hissed softly, "or rather, I finally meet myself." Voldemort laughed as he spoke, pacing back and forth, glancing around, and the snake was still circling on the grass. "We are one, you can't deny it, remember? Our mother was a wizard who lived in a desolate village similar to this one. She fell in love with him, but when she revealed her identity, he abandoned her. Our father didn't like magic, he left her and returned to his Muggle parents before we were born. Our mother died giving birth to us, and we grew up in a Muggle orphanage. After that, we vowed to find him, and take revenge on him." He continued to pace, his red eyes scanning back and forth over Tom. Tom frowned and looked at him. "I think you have got one thing wrong. We are different. My father is not the man you said. My father is Peter Patrick." "Really? Tom, don't lie to yourself. You are me. You are Tom Riddle. You are the me in the past, the me who lived in an orphanage in the past, but there were some accidents in the past timeline, and you were adopted by Peter Patrick." Voldemort sneered. "Do you think you can change your past? No, because you have this face. Dumbledore knows, Peter Patrick knows, and everyone knows that you are the Tom Riddle of the past. You have read the diary, and you must have written down your ambitions in it. We are descendants of Salazar Slytherin. My bloodline is so noble. Muggles and wizards must worship at the feet of the respected descendants of Salazar Slytherin. Tisk, pure-blooded wizards are noble, and mudbloods are not worthy of being called wizards and receiving magical education. These words are what we once said." Voldemort stretched out his hand towards Tom. "We are the same person, Tom. You are me and I am you. We can join forces and make everyone crawl at our feet." Tom looked at him coldly, with a hint of sarcasm on his handsome pale face. But he quickly hid his emotions and asked him, "Why are you here?" "This is the venue for the Triwizard Tournament chosen by my father. This does not belong to the Hogwarts world." "How did you do it, and those alien monsters, how did you avoid their pursuit?" Voldemort shook his head. "It's a long story, but before that, I need to call my loyal men." As he spoke, countless shadows walked out of the darkness. All of them wore black robes to cover their faces. "These are my friends and men. I admit that I miscalculated. My spell was blocked by the woman's foolish sacrifice and bounced back to me. Ah, the pain is beyond everything, my friends. Nothing can resist it. I have been stripped of my body. I am worse than a ghost, worse than the humblest wandering spirit, but I am still alive. What I am, I still don't know. I have walked farther on the road to immortality than anyone else. You know my goal, to conquer death." Chapter 748 Voldemort vs. Tom. I am the son of Patrick. I still remember those sleepless nights. I just forced myself to live second by second. I hid in a remote forest, waiting. My loyal Death Eaters would definitely find a way to find me. I was very sure at that time. I believed that there would always be someone who would use the magic that I couldn't cast to give me a body, but I waited in vain. The circle of Death Eaters shuddered. Voldemort didn't continue to speak, letting the terror escalate in silence. After a pause, he continued, "After that, I only had one magic power left. I could possess other people, but I didn't dare go to crowded places because I knew the auras were still looking for me everywhere. I sometimes possess animals. Snakes are of course my favorite, but they are not much better than being a pure ghost because their bodies are not suitable for magic, and my possession shortens their lifespan. They didn't live long. Later, 4 years ago, my resurrection seemed to have hope. A young, stupid and gullible wizard walked into the forest where I settled, and I happened to run into him. Oh, that seemed to be the opportunity I had dreamed of, because he was a teacher in Dumbledore's school and he was easily manipulated by me. He took me back to Hogwarts, and later I possessed him, closely monitored him, and guided him to carry out my orders, but my plan failed. I didn't steal the Philosopher's Stone, and I couldn't guarantee immortality. I was frustrated, and I was frustrated by Harry Potter again. There was another silence, without a trace of movement, as if the air had condensed. The Death Eaters stood still, their eyes gleaming from behind their cowls, staring at Voldemort, then at Tom. Unfortunately, the teacher died after I left his body, and I became as weak as before. Voldemort continued. By that time, I had given up all illusions that any Death Eater would care about my condition. 1 or 2 wizards moved uneasily around them, but Voldemort did not seem to notice. Then, less than a year ago, when I had almost given up hope, hope finally appeared. A servant found me, Wormtail, who had played dead to escape justice. He was being pursued by those he once considered friends, so he decided to return to his master, and he sought me in the country where people had long said I was hiding. As he spoke, Voldemort cast his eyes on Wormtail. Of course, Wormtail got help from the mice along the way. Wormtail and mice have a peculiarly close relationship, right, Wormtail? His filthy little friend told him that deep in the dense forests of Albania, there is a place that they dare not approach. Many small animals like them are possessed by a dark shadow there. Tom listened to Voldemort's story quietly and expressionlessly without interrupting him. But his journey back to me was not smooth, was it, Wormtail? One night, he had reached the edge of the forest and was about to find me, but then, because he was hungry, he foolishly walked into an inn, where he happened to meet Bertha Jorkins, a witch from the Ministry of Magic. Now look, how fate has been kind to me. This encounter could have cost Wormtail's life, and perhaps also destroyed my last hope of resurrection, but Wormtail's performance was beyond my expectations. He was unexpectedly calm, and he persuaded Bertha Jorkins to take a walk with him at night. He subdued her and then brought her to me. Bertha Jorkins, who could have ruined everything, became a wonderful gift that I could never have dreamed of, because, with a little persuasion and some tricks from me, she confessed a lot of information. Tom looked at him coldly. So you know about the Triwizard Tournament and are planning to use this tournament to cause trouble? Yes, she told me about the Triwizard Tournament, and also told me that this year's competition is a little different. Suddenly, a Padrick family appeared, and all his children participated in the competition, and one of them is called Tom Padrick, and she also told me that there is a loyal Death Eater here, and as long as I contact him, he will be willing to help me. Voldemort looked at the snake wandering on the ground with red eyes. It's really shocking. I never thought that my past self would be reborn. What's even more unexpected is that Peter Padrick has such incredible abilities. He can actually connect the space to here. This is an alien planet. The creatures here are perfect and wonderful. They live on killing. Such a wonderful death and killing machine. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. My original plan was Harry Potter. Using Bertha Jorkins' information, I planned to have the loyal Death Eater lurking in Hogwarts ensure that the boy's name was put into the Goblet of Fire, and then use my Death Eater to ensure that the boy won the competition and that he was the first to touch the Triwizard Cup. The Tempered Cup will bring him to me, away from Dumbledore's help and protection, and into my hands. Voldemort stared at Tom, then shook his head. But after discovering this place, I changed my mind. I used an ancient spell to suck the vitality of these killing monsters, allowing me to gradually restore my body and my original strength. Now, Tom, the other me, return to my side. Let us work together to conquer this world and make it crawl at our feet. Voldemort stretched out his hand to Tom. I can feel your ambition. You are the same as me. Your ambition is for the wizarding world. You want to conquer them. We are one. I can feel it. You are right. My ambition is indeed the entire wizarding world. Tom nodded. But you have misunderstood my ultimate goal. What ultimate goal? This is just a small goal of mine. As the son of Patrick, the wizarding world of Hogwarts is just a small goal of mine. Above that, there are higher ones, the Milky Way, the entire universe, the multiverse, and finally, Patrick Farm. Tom's words stunned Voldemort. In my eyes, pure-bloodedness is no longer important, because compared with my father and the farm, the theory of bloodline is not worth mentioning. Do you know how narrow your vision is in my eyes? Tom stared at Voldemort and said slowly, you use violence to intimidate your subordinates, but you have never thought about how to lead your subordinates to convince more people. You don't understand that violence and terror are never the only means. You only focus on the small British wizarding world, and you can't even beat a child. I'm not you, and I have never been you. My father is Peter Patrick. I use him as my goal, and my vision is countless times broader than yours. Soon Tom sighed pretentiously, but I sympathize with you. Before you learned about your own life experience, you always thought that your father was the one who inherited magic to you. When facing your father, the rude words that contempt magic blurted out made you completely angry. And this was the last straw that forced you to fall into darkness. Your childhood experience is the unavoidable pain point in your life, and it is also the source of everything called destiny. He stared at the stunned Voldemort and continued, as a tragic character who grew up in an orphanage, after experiencing all kinds of worldly affairs, the past and present will be mixed together to stew a pot of terrifying soup called future. It can be said that your life is destined to be tragic. I am indeed the Voldemort of the past, but in the soup of the future that my father and family stewed, which is no longer a terrifying soup, my future is completely different from yours. So, don't say we are the same person. I am you in the past, but not you in the present and future. After Tom finished speaking, the scene fell into dead silence. Voldemort stared at Tom. After a while, he uttered a sentence. Do you think your father loves you the most? You are just the most ordinary one among his many children. You, a person born of aphrodisiacs, will never feel the so-called love and emotions. Tom, don't deceive yourself. Tom was a little defensive after being hit by Voldemort's two precise sentences. Shut up, bang. The magic ropes tied to his body were instantly broken by him. Holding the magic wand in his hand, Tom instantly released a green spell Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra. Voldemort was not slow either. A green light shot out from Voldemort's wand, and he released a killing curse. In a short moment, the two green lights met in the air. Tom's wand suddenly vibrated as if it was electrified, and he held it tightly. Suddenly, a thin ray of light connected the two wands. It was neither red nor green, but dazzling gold. Voldemort, who was standing opposite him, also held a trembling wand in his pale and slender fingers. The two men gritted their teeth and rushed against each other, wishing to kill each other immediately. Then, completely caught off guard, Tom's own feet left the ground, and both of them rose into the air, with the two wands still connected by the flickering golden line. The Death Eaters below saw this scene and exclaimed, and some Death Eaters asked Voldemort for instructions. The big snake swam behind their feet, and several people drew their wands to support Voldemort. The next second, the golden thread connecting Tom and Voldemort suddenly broke, but the two wands were still tightly connected, and thousands of arcs of light appeared above the two. The arcs of light intertwined around him and finally formed a dome-shaped golden net. A cage made of light appeared before everyone's eyes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 749, Brothers Loki and Tom join forces to fight against the Death Eaters. Everyone, don't move, Voldemort shouted loudly to the Death Eaters around him. Tom saw his red eyes flashing with disbelief. It was obvious that he was very shocked by the scene in front of him, and he didn't seem to expect what was happening. He glanced at Tom, and used all his strength to try to break the scattered light threads connecting the two wands. Tom continued to maintain his calm, holding the wand tightly with one hand. No one, don't move without my order, Voldemort shouted to the Death Eaters around him. The two of them waved at each other, gritting their teeth and holding each other, as if they wanted to kill each other. Tom could feel that the wand in his hand became hot, as if the wand would burn in the next second. Concentrating all his thoughts, Tom tried to force the golden energy towards Voldemort. As Tom continued to increase the output power of magic energy, and under the effect of the psychic amplifier in the power armor, the light ball trembled and stopped, and then slowly began to move to the other end. As the light ball moved, Voldemort's wand vibrated violently. The trembling ball of light gradually approached Voldemort. Finally, it was only a few inches away from the tip of his wand. The ball of light slowly moved along the golden thread, trembling for a moment, and then connected with the tip of Voldemort's wand. After connecting with the ball of light, Voldemort's wand seemed to scream in pain. In Tom's shocked and incredible eyes, he heard Voldemort's wand scream in pain, and then something came out from the tip of the wand. A thin human head that seemed to be made of thick smoke formed, followed by arms and a body. The ghost of an old man that Tom felt somewhat familiar squeezed out of Voldemort's wand. The ghost made of smoke, or a ghost, leaned on a cane and looked at Tom and Voldemort with a surprised expression on his face, as well as the wands in golden net were connected to each other in the air. It's unbelievable, there are two Voldemorts. No, this doesn't seem to be the young'un, you don't have that evil power in your body. The old man looked back and forth between Voldemort and Tom, and finally said to Tom, "This guy wants my life, don't give up, you can defeat him, kid." After the old man, another head appeared from Voldemort's wand. A woman with a smoky head appeared from the smoke. Tom gritted his teeth and tried his best to hold the wand firmly, and continued to push the wave towards Voldemort. He saw the woman with the smoky head fall to the ground, and after adapting to the environment, she stood up and looked at the two people who were fighting. Bertha Jorkin's ghost stared with big eyes, looking at the battle in front of her that she had never expected. "Don't give up." Bertha Jorkin's voice was full of echoes, as if it came from a long distance. "Defeat him and defeat yourself, Tom. Don't give up." Then Bertha Jorkins and the other ghosts began to move along the inner wall of the golden net. The Death Eaters were completely isolated outside by the golden net. The ghosts killed by Voldemort, Bertha Jorkins and the old man, constantly encouraged Tom who was fighting. Then a third woman appeared from Voldemort's wand. Tom looked at the third woman and was completely stunned. A woman with long hair fell to the ground like Bertha. Then she stood up and looked at Tom who was fighting. It was Lily James. Tom didn't expect that Harry's mother would appear, and in the form of a ghost. Lily didn't seem to expect to see this scene. She probably didn't expect that one day she would see two Voldemorts fighting. Lily, who had seen Voldemort's young image, saw Tom at a glance, and he was exactly the same as Voldemort when he was young. She looked at the situation on the scene in a daze, and didn't know how to deal with it for a while. After Lily, the ghost of a tall man with messy hair also appeared from the wand. James Potter's soul came out of Voldemort's wand and looked at Tom who was fighting Voldemort. Voldemort didn't expect that he could see the ghosts of Lily and James. He was shocked by the scene and his face turned pale. "He is Tom Padrick, son of Peter Padrick, an enemy of Voldemort," Bertha Jorkin's ghost shouted to the Potters. James Potter's ghost nodded and stood behind Tom. Distant words came from afar. "We will help you, Tom. We will resist Voldemort here, but after the link is broken, we will not stay for long. Tell Harry that we love him, we will always stand behind him, no matter where he goes, we will be by his side. Don't give up love, this is the greatest magic in the world, Tom. You must also remember, Voldemort has always been wrong, and the most powerful magic he pursues is actually the love he has abandoned." Lily, standing behind Tom, smiled and told Tom what she wanted him to convey to Harry. Potter glanced at his wife and said to Tom, "Now I count to 3, you let go." Tom, at the same time, the Death Eaters trapped outside were anxious because they could not intervene in the battle between Tom and Voldemort. Bang! There was a sudden vibration from the ground. The Death Eaters turned around and saw the young man wearing horns standing in front of them. Loki did not wear power armor, but appeared in front of many Death Eaters in Hogwarts uniform. "Well, it seems that I am not too late." Looking at the golden light produced by the battle between Tom and Voldemort, Loki shrugged his shoulders. Loki, who had not shown up, successfully rescued Zhang-Chu and found traces of Death Eaters' activities on this planet. Thinking that this planet, in addition to his father, people from the Ministry of Magic could also enter, Loki quickly thought that Voldemort's followers might be plotting something here. So he sent Zhang-Chu to a safe area, near the Hogwarts portal, and continued to search for traces of Death Eaters, and finally found Voldemort and his followers. As for the power armor, he felt that it was a bit cumbersome, so he gave it to Zhang-Chu. Let Zhang-Chu wear the power armor, and by the way, she can also protect her. Seeing that Loki seemed to be coming with bad intentions, the Death Eaters immediately attacked him. Loki's movements were faster, and he drew the rune with his left hand. In an instant, the humid air molecules in the entire cemetery condensed into hexagonal-like edges. The Death Eater closest to him just raised his wand and was instantly blown away by the frost. As the scepter was swung, countless ice crystals attacked the Death Eaters. The Death Eaters reacted quickly and immediately constructed a barrier to resist Loki's ice crystal attack. God's strike without shadow, Loki faced the siege of the Death Eaters, dodging and releasing magic at the same time. In an instant, the entire space was surrounded by spells, and countless spells flew in the sky. Facing the siege of many Death Eaters, Loki used the scepter to draw the Asgard protection array in the air. With a boom, the green death curse decomposed into countless light points the moment it touched the rune array. These light points were transformed into the Patronus charm by Loki and rushed towards the Death Eaters. The Death Eaters, who were unable to react, were instantly knocked away by Loki and fell to the ground. Loki, who was outnumbered, still had the upper hands in the face of many Death Eaters with powerful magic. At the same time, in the golden light circle. 1, 2, 3. Retreat, James Potter shouted to Tom. Now, retreat, okay, Tom shouted loudly, and then he raised his wand upwards with force. The golden line was instantly disconnected, and the light net quickly disappeared in front of him. The golden light rushed towards Tom, making a deafening explosion. Because Tom was forced to interrupt the wave, he was directly knocked away. Voldemort wanted to use this opportunity to attack Tom, but the ghosts who died at Voldemort's hands did not disappear. The ghosts of Lily and others surrounded Voldemort and blocked him. Tom stood up from the ground, enduring the pain, and was a little surprised to see Loki fighting with the Death Eaters. He didn't expect that the one who came to save him in the end would be Loki. On the farm, he and Loki didn't have a very good relationship. Regardless of being surprised, Tom stood up and raised his wand, knocking the two stunned Death Eaters to the side. He felt a little uncomfortable after forcibly ending the magic confrontation, but he still endured the pain and drowsiness and rushed towards Voldemort. Knock him out, he heard Voldemort, who was surrounded by ghosts, shouting loudly. In an instant, several Death Eaters rushed over, and Tom's power sword instantly chopped off the closest one. On the other side, one of the Death Eaters summoned the fiery python, and the fire snake fangs rushed towards Loki. The Asgard rune suddenly lit up on the ground. The fiend fire suddenly turned around and engulfed the guy who released the fiend fire into the sea of fire. Screams suddenly rang out in the space. Avada Kedavra. At the same time, Tom raised his wand over his shoulder, pointed at the Death Eaters chasing behind him, and shouted loudly. With a dull shout, he knew that he had at least intercepted one. But there was no time to stop and watch. Tom jumped over the crowd of Death Eaters and heard the sound of more ones being fired from behind. Ignoring these sounds, Tom now had only one target, that was Voldemort. Another self that he hated. Voldemort's red eyes glowed in the dark, his lips twisted into a grin, and he raised his wand towards Tom. Avada Kedavra. Without waiting for Voldemort to release the spell, Tom rushed in front of him and violently released green death energy at him. Voldemort dodged, but was hit by Tom's fist in the power armor close to him, and was knocked out with a boom. Voldemort, who fell to the ground in humiliation, wanted to stand up, but his men had already rushed over. We have to leave, otherwise Dumbledore and Padraic will notice and we won't be able to escape. Chapter 750 Tom, Reconciliation with the Savior. Dark Lord, we have to go. The Death Eaters came over to hold Voldemort and took him back. A purple portal had been opened, and the loyal Death Eaters took him away by force despite Voldemort's objection. No. Get out of the way. I want to kill him, he's mine. Voldemort was naturally unwilling to escape in such a humiliating way by his men, and screamed at Tom, I want to kill him. Tom saw that Voldemort wanted to escape, so he naturally didn't let him go. Crucio, he released the unforgivable curse at Voldemort, but was quickly stopped by the Death Eaters who rushed up. The giant flaming snake formed by the fiery curse roared and attacked Tom and Loki. After the two resisted the giant flaming snake, Voldemort had been carried into the portal by the Death Eaters. Listening to Voldemort's unwilling roar still in front of him, Tom put down his wand and wiped the blood off his face. He was a little annoyed that he couldn't catch Voldemort here. Don't worry, this guy will show up again. I don't believe that a Dark Lord who wants to cause trouble will remain dormant and refuse to come out after he has a physical body, Loki comforted Tom from the side. Thank you. Tom thanked Loki for arriving in time to help him. You're welcome. We are family, aren't we? Loki rarely showed seriousness. He put his hand on Tom's shoulder and said to him, "To be honest, I didn't expect that you and your counterpart would be so incompatible. I have never seen such a situation before. Even Azu and the people of the homeland in the Black Robe world don't hate each other as much as you do." Tom looked at his wand. "Maybe it's because the two of us have become people who hate each other." Then he looked at Loki suspiciously and asked him, "Where's your power armor? I think that thing is a bit cumbersome, so I gave it to Zhang-Chu to wear." Loki shrugged his shoulders and said to him, "Don't forget, I still have Iron Man's iron armor. To me, the power armor is not as interesting as the iron armor." Looking at the place where Voldemort disappeared from the portal, Loki said to Tom, "Don't look at it. Let's go. We are still in the competition. I guess our scores will be the last." When Mark came out of the portal first, the stands immediately cheered loudly. Then Harry, Fleur, Raven, Star-Lord, and others also walked out of the portal one by one with the hostages they rescued. Mark could see Madame Pomfrey, fussing around Hermione, Fleur, Ginny and Cho Chang, all wrapped in thick blankets. Harry looked up at the stands, where Dumbledore and Ludo Bagman were smiling at everyone. Percy's face was pale, and he looked several years younger than usual. When he saw Mark and the others coming out, he was eager to rush over to greet them. At the same time, Madame Maxime was trying to hold Fleur Delacour, asking her if she was injured or feeling uncomfortable. Fleur's expression was a little dazed, and she had not yet fully recovered from the battle with the aliens. "Fleur, are you okay? Are you injured?" Yes, I'm fine." Fleur wanted to tell her that she was fine, but she was too tired to even speak. Glancing at the stage, Fleur saw Peter's eyes looking in this direction, so she excitedly stretched out her hand and waved to Peter. Percy saw Ron, an unrelated person, trying to break in, so he grabbed him and threw him back. Dumbledore and Bagman surrounded Harry and said something to him. Fleur broke free from Madame Maxime's obstruction and walked towards Raven. She wanted to thank Raven for helping her. Without Raven's help, she probably wouldn't have been able to pass. Raven's face was full of confusion. She didn't see Wanda and Tom. These two were responsible for the rear guard. Did they follow? She frowned with a serious expression. Did something unexpected happen? "All of you come here," Madame Pomfrey said to everyone. She grabbed Harry, pulled him to Hermione and the others, and wrapped him tightly with a blanket. At this time, Harry had taken off his power armor. After taking off the power armor and putting on Madame Pomfrey's blanket, he felt as if he was wearing a straitjacket to restrain prisoners and lunatics. Madame Pomfrey also forced a hot potion into his mouth. After drinking this strange potion, hot air immediately came out of his ears. "Harry, well done. And Mark, you two are very brave." Madame Pomfrey patted Harry on the shoulder. "You succeeded, you solved it all by yourself." Actually, it was mainly Mark's help. Harry said that he could pass the test smoothly, and the most important thing was that Mark helped him. He was about to tell her about Mark, but in a blink of an eye he saw Karkaroff looking at him. Among the several referees, he was the only one who did not leave the table, and he was the only one who did not show a happy and relieved expression after seeing Harry, Mark, Raven, Fleur and others return safely. "Yes, that's right, we won." Representing Hogwarts, Harry changed his words and deliberately raised his voice a little so that Karkaroff could hear. In the stands, Peter saw that Wanda, Tom and Loki had not come out yet, so he walked down the stands and asked Raven about what happened. Since the projection screen could not fully project everyone's perspective, Peter did not know what happened after Wanda and Tom were the last. "What happened?" Raven, Peter asked Raven what happened. Before Raven could speak, a figure suddenly walked out of the portal. Wanda appeared from the portal. "Wanda, sir." Wanda came over excitedly after seeing Peter, ignoring the eyes of others, and whispered to him, "Something unexpected happened." Tom was taken away by the portal when he was fighting the alien monster. Seeing that Wanda's expression seemed a little wrong, Dumbledore and Bagman also came over and asked Wanda what happened. Wanda then told the two about Tom being taken away. "It seems that something unexpected happened." Dumbledore glanced at Peter and said, "Mr. Padraic, let's go to the scene and see what happened." He suggested that Peter go to the alien planet with him. Swish. Swish. When everyone in the stands saw that the atmosphere on the scene was a little solemn and was caught in discussion, the figures of Tom and Loki came out of the portal. Tom, with scars on his face and a rather embarrassed figure, immediately attracted everyone's attention. Peter immediately walked forward and hugged Tom. Seeing that the other party looked extremely tired, Peter frowned and asked him, "What happened?" Tom, Why are you injured? Tom felt a little dizzy. The backlash of the magic confrontation made him very tired, as if all the strength in his body had been drained. It's the mysterious man, Dad. After whispering to Peter, Tom fell into deep sleep. The mysterious man? When Peter heard the name, his eyes narrowed. Did this old guy come back to life to cause trouble? Night. Hogwarts principal's office. It was late at night, and the office was still brightly lit. Harry walked towards the principal's office a little anxiously. He didn't know why the principal and Mr. Pedraic called him to the office. Did Dumbledore and Mr. Pedraic disappoint him in his performance against the aliens on the alien battlefield? Harry walked while thinking anxiously. Since Tom and Loki returned, the expressions of the judges and Mr. Pedraic and others have become serious. It seems that something serious has happened to Tom and Loki without their knowledge. After knocking on the door, Harry entered the principal's office and saw Peter and Dumbledore sitting together to discuss something. Tom, who looked a little pale and a little more feminine and handsome, stood aside. Come in, Harry, let's talk, you sit here. As soon as he entered the door, Dumbledore enthusiastically asked him to sit down, and at the same time waved his wand and handed him a cup. Drink some of Madame Pomfrey's special medicine. This weather will make you feel better. Thank you. While thanking Dumbledore, Harry poured the contents of the cup into his mouth. The next second he was choked and coughed, and his throat was as hot as pepper. Peter looked at Harry's miserable state, glanced at Dumbledore, then coughed and said to Tom, Tom, tell Harry what you've experienced. Tom nodded and told Harry about his battle with Voldemort, and how Harry's parents' spirits appeared to help him resist Voldemort. My father and mother. Harry was stunned when he heard the shocking story told by Tom. He didn't expect a mysterious man to come back, and his parents would also show up. When Harry heard the words his parents left for him, tears filled his eyes. It was unclear whether it was in a dream or in those flashback memories. The words that his mother said to him at the last moment when Voldemort came to his home echoed in his ears. Harry, many people love you very much. Harry, Mom loves you, Dad loves you too. Harry, protect yourself and be strong. He tried not to let his tears flow, but forced a smile towards Tom. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for letting me hear this. I will always walk on the path they hope for. We all do. Looking at Harry's face, Tom felt touched. He suddenly found that this so-called savior was not so disgusting to him. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.